has the details.
Two video clips checked by BBC Verify show protesters outside the parliament and clambering onto its gated entrance, waving flags and chanting slogans. Several major social media platforms have been inaccessible in Nepal since Friday. The government says a total of 26 platforms must comply with local regulations before they have blocks on them removed. But for millions of young users in Nepal, the measures have cut off access to news, business and entertainment. They accuse the government of trying to silence free speech.
Recapping the top story, Home Affairs Minister Dr. Leon Schreiber says nearly 80 million rand has been spent in the 2024-25 financial year on the deportation of illegal immigrants. He was replying to a written parliamentary question by the Patriotic Alliance's Millicent Mutapa. I'm on Lambana for SFM News Headlines at 3:30.
And it's a very good afternoon to you. I'm Zai Khan, and your sports headlines. The Super Eagles have landed in Bloemfontein and they are eager for their 3 points against Bafana Bafana, and we'll bring you the Springboks, where the latest Ethan Hooker, well, he's saying that the Boks will be redeeming themselves. Let's find out more just before 3:30.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation. This Heritage Month, SAFM invites you to journey into the past while shaping the future under the theme Reimagine Our Heritage Institutions for a New Era. We celebrate the stories, traditions and voices that define who we are as a nation. From vibrant conversations to thought-provoking debates, SAFM is where heritage meets innovation, connecting generations and keeping our culture alive in a changing world. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out, because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday the 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So, warm welcome to you. It's Monday afternoon. Lots to reflect on there, and really, as we get into the big issues of the week, there's been an update on the Madlanga Commission. As you know, we will certainly cover that presser that's just started in some form or the other as the afternoon unfolds. But you may want to, listening in to the presser, you may want to give us your own thoughts on that in terms of what out of that moves the national pulse. That's one thing. There's a win for the Bafana team, so good news. Almost there at the World Cup, almost. There's another big hurdle to follow against Nigeria in a couple of days' time. But the Springboks lost, maybe not a surprise, really. They ultimately came within 7 points of drawing, but they were second best, I think, for major parts of that game. And there's some other big highlights in terms of the women's team in rugby and other things that you may want to touch on too. But the issues certainly remain. I attended a conference of sorts at the weekend, and one of the big questions asked was, how is it that this battle, this war between Gaza and Palestine and Israel has continued for 700 days? How is it that it has not stopped? And Professor Stephen Friedman made the point to say just one word: it hasn't stopped because of America. And if America chooses to want to stop it, it'll stop immediately. I'll leave it at that because there's lots to come out of that conversation. Now, we'll talk about many other things, including the BRICS Leaders Summit, which I think is a very, very important conversation to have as well. I'll try and read some points from tweets from Elon Musk. He always gets the pulses racing, I can assure you. But this one should. Let's talk about teen pregnancy. Let me throw out the number first for you to engage with me live on air. 086 000 2032. And then WhatsApp, text or voice note 0614 104 107. My name is Ashraf Garda. You are so connected now to the National Pulse. We'll do that for the next 3 hours. You can tweet as well using the hashtag the National Pulse, right? Okay, so the African Transformation Movement, the ATM, have put out a call. They want government to formally declare teenage pregnancies a pandemic. Why? Well, amongst the data to back up their position, they say that 90,000 pregnancies occurred among girls in the last year, and those girls are aged between the ages of 10 and 19. So, teenage pregnancy, a pandemic. Let's find out more about it with Zama Nchona, the ATM national spokesperson. Zama, appreciate you connecting to us on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon to you and the listeners.
I suppose the issue of teenage pregnancy has got the pulses racing for years, and yet it seems like we speak about it and that's it, isn't it? So what is your understanding of what is the reality? Then we'll talk about what you think should happen next, besides simply calling it a pandemic.
Thank you so much. Well, for us as the African Transformation Movement, we believe that if you are going to have young 9-year-olds who are sexually active, who are doing that without a guidance, because you would say for them to be pregnant at age 10, even giving birth at age 10, it speaks to misguidance. They don't know how to protect themselves. They do not understand at times what they are doing. And that has a knock-on effect, detrimental effect on society as a whole as we move forward. So you have, if you look at, even if you're looking at the 2022 report, and when you're looking at the 2023, 2024, 25 report, you'll see that you have numbers such as 90,000, 67,389. We are speaking about people who do not have the capacity to even mend themselves, being given a responsibility to raise another child. In a country where we have seen that lawlessness amongst others, lack of morality amongst others, criminality amongst others, because children raised by children, if there is no support staff, it has been proven that that could lead to further detriment of society.
So look, there's no question that teenage pregnancies, is a no-no, especially with the younger teenagers, right? And you've given some of the effects of it all, right? Why do you think, what's the cause of it? Why has it prevailed to the extent that it has?
Thank you so much. One of the biggest challenges that we're faced with in the South African phenomenon of this matter is that we have broken families first. The family unit has disintegrated to a state of despondency. There are no clean communication lines between parents and children. In some instances, children are raising themselves. In some instances, the grandmothers and grandfathers are left with the children to actually raise them. And apart from that, you have challenges of a fatherless society, which is also a contributing factor amongst others. So these contribute a great deal in the upbringing of the young, and any form of break in communication and in teaching and also having models in society, they breed such. But also when you go to our the creation of a conducive environment using now official platforms like the government, you would see that we are not doing nearly enough to actually deal with such.
But why do you think, I heard what you said about broken families and, fatherless society. I hear all of that, and therefore families have disintegrated. But the issues may have started a long time ago, but we've had 3 decades now of a democratic South Africa where this issue has been put at the top of the agenda, not the bottom of the agenda all these years. Why don't you think we have failed so miserably to rectify the problem?
In our bid to deal with the issue of protecting the vulnerable groups in our society, I do not think that we have done enough to deal with this particular issue. We might have said there must be stronger sentences for rapists. We might have said there must be those who are killing children and all of that, there must be life sentences that are given to them. But when it comes to issues of moral regeneration, when it comes to issues of protection of the young from themselves now we have, because it's not only an issue of this relationship only happens when older men prey on the young. But in some instances, you find that they are 3, 4, 5 years apart, but they are still within the teen group, and they do not know how to actually take precautionary measures when it comes to this. I think that as society and government, when it comes to dealing with the issue of moral regeneration, we have truly failed dismally in our quest to protect the young.
Okay, let's then move on to your actual call, right? Because the causes that you've mentioned and the impact of society on teenage pregnancies and your figures talking about 90,000 teenage pregnancies in the last years is horrific, right? You then speak about you want to get government to formally declare teenage pregnancies a pandemic. So why so, and how do you think that will change things?
If you're going to have 90,000 children in a given year, giving birth to give or take minimum 90,000 children, and in the past 3 years, you're not looking at anything less than 250,000 into our society, we have a problem. There is a ripple effect of that problem, especially when you look at issues of the majority of the children involved in this are not from well-off families. Now, if poverty was a problem in that family, it is about to double because of there is a new born baby who must also be taken care of. When the mother who is underage in a family that is impoverished now seeks to maintain the child and they are not of age to work in a country where job opportunities are not there, what is the likelihood that they would use noble ways to actually find the alternate or to find sustenance for that particular child? So this is a breeding ground for also by extension of criminality, because when they are not able to maintain themselves, the options that are there may not all be options that we can actually allow as society.
Okay.
So this is why we feel that it is a pandemic that needs to be taken care of, and not only from an issue of just giving birth, but the aftermath, which is also a problem for society.
All right, but just to clear up, just so that we understand what you're saying, I mean, you want government to declare teenage pregnancy a pandemic, right? How will the declaration, if you get there and you succeed, how will that change things?
One, you now get to a point where there is a program of action that is fully funded by the government to deal with this issue, because without having a fully functional program under the theme of protecting the young even from themselves, and further anticipating problems that could cause issues of criminality and that in society. So if we move from that premise, we then now can say a declaration by government is in protection of the young and also in ensuring that there is education, but also maybe extending that in cases where old people are preying on young people and that goes unnoticed, or we want to hide behind culture by saying that we have paid for the pregnancy, we are maintaining the children whilst abusing the children, those issues could come to the fore so that prosecutions can actually take place in instances of that nature.
Okay, let's conclude by asking you this very quickly. One thing is the wish list of having declared a pandemic. I mean, that's easier said than done. What are the processes to move from your wish list now on the National Pulse to actual realization of teenage pregnancies being declared a pandemic?
We believe that society, we must come together, churches, NGOs, political parties, we must see this for what it is. It cannot be something that needs to happen. The Department of Social Development must come to the fore. It's important that the presidency must come to the fore so that we are able to speak with one voice. It can be normalized, the issue of having over 250,000 of young people between the ages of 10 and 19 being parents of any child.
And let's leave it at that. Zama Nchona, the ATM national spokesperson, putting on the agenda, thank you for your time, in fact, Zama, but putting on the agenda the need for teenage pregnancies to be declared a pandemic because, according to him and the ATM, it is so widespread. It reflects the worst of where we are as a society, and something has got to change. And declaring it a pandemic will throw in government support and funding, and that may well change things. Now, do you agree with that or don't you? I'd like to hear from you. I'll take your calls right away, in fact. 086 000 2032, and what are your experiences, if any, around teenage pregnancy. You may want to remain anonymous. You certainly can do so.
When you're uploading massive files, does it really matter what your internet's download speed is? With business class internet, you get a connection that's as fast going up as it is down. Your company deserves business class internet, because just reboot the router isn't a business strategy. Find reliability at vodacombusiness.co.za. Together, let's build the extraordinary. Further together. Vodacom Business.
When you're smiling, on 19th September, wear your favorite socks to school or work and help spread smiles to children across South Africa. The sun comes shining through. Get your Socks for Smile sticker today at smilefoundation.co.za, because every sticker helps fund life-changing surgeries for children in need. Smile Foundation. This is an SABC-supported initiative.
Think about 6 years ago, when Amapiano was just a musical instrument, when streaming meant watching water flow, not videos online, and remote work was only said when your remote batteries died. So it makes you wonder, what will the next 6 years bring? Hino trucks now come standard with a 6-year drivetrain warranty, covering everything from pistons to gears. So although a lot can change in 6 years, our warranty promise won't. T's and C's apply. Hino, all the way.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195, and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
All right, I need to hear what you have to say. We'll get your comments on many of the issues, but in fact, let's take some of the calls first, right? Litle in Stellenbosch, right? What's your point? Litle, hi.
I'm good. Ashraf, I just wanted to say, first of all, I think we need to redefine the teenage pregnancy. Anyone who impregnates a child below the age of 18, that is statutory rape. The second point I wanted to make is that I am doing research on gender-based violence, particularly sexual violence, and we have interviewed a huge number of convicted rapists in one of the big prisons in South Africa. And one of our findings was that 99% of the people who have been convicted of rape actually raped children below the age of 15.
Sure.
Most of the children are around 8 years old, 9 years old. So I really feel that as long as we're calling it teenage pregnancy, we are
Oh, Little, you still there? I know alarm bells were ringing, but I get your point. Okay, I certainly got the gist of it, what you're saying. Call it what it is, redefine it. It's statutory rape. And that figure is interesting. I wonder if others will agree with that number. According to Little, 99%, that's what you said, of convicted rapists are convicted of committing, this act of rape with children from the ages of 15 and below. Really? Whew.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, the issue of the teenage pregnancies is really, really a national disaster.
Well, I think we've heard that about it being a national disaster. You may wonder, why has it been given the attention it deserves? Like, is it that much of a crisis that it must be treated as a crisis?
Good afternoon, Ashraf and the listeners. Ashraf, declaring teenage pregnancy a pandemic, is that going to change anything? Maybe the gentleman just wants more money available for tenders. If you're not going to get the law enforcement agencies to act against those old people impregnating children, nothing's going to change. So there's no other laws and stuff necessary. Get the government law enforcement agencies to implement the law and take action. These smart discussions and barking up the wrong tree is not going to solve the problem.
Well, I hear you and saying about that caller, all they want, ATM would be like a big tender. I mean, you have no proof for that. So it's a bit, a cheap shot, I'm saying. On the other hand, I hear what you're also saying, that is it about policing? You don't need anything else. You just need better policing. But, I mean, don't you then get a sense that our policing, we're floundering? There's not a day where they can't get to grip on things. And that could not just be because they don't do a good job. It's because they're completely under-resourced themselves. And that's a big deal.
Sure, Ashraf. Teenage pregnancy should not be declared a national pandemic. It has been there from time immemorial. It's just that during the apartheid era, it was not so bad. So the social workers should continue to lecture, to workshop the teenagers on teenage pregnancy, and they should continue to demystify it. Good afternoon, Fawzil from Brownfish.
Okay, demystify. But is there a mystery around it, or is it pretty obvious in terms of it being unacceptable? I mean, where is it? Certainly, I'm talking of South African society, that it's considered okay.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. The issue of teenage pregnancy should be treated as criminal. It is a criminal act to actually sleep with an underage child. And also, it's a criminal act for those parents to withdraw cases that are reported, that are with the police. Those people should be locked up as well. Ruth from Randburg.
Thanks for that, Ruth. Well, I mean, it is criminal. I think the big question is not that it's ever not been criminal, but should the punishment be tightened up even more, even harder, and should the conviction rate be increased? And if that's not the case, then why is that not the case? Why are we still talking about it where there's not a single politician who has ever said that rape is acceptable? Nobody has ever said that. So why is it so prevalent then? Tulani in Cape Town, hello. Tulani, do I have you there? Hello? Tulani, 3 times. I feel like the baseballer strike out. Tulani, we have you there? No, we don't. Okay, let's see if we can reconnect with Tulani in just a moment or so. By the way, we're going to talk about USA just now, but one of the things that I saw just this morning, in fact, it certainly got me wondering, like, where do we go? And I just want to pick it up here because it comes from Elon Musk, of all people, as he often does. Let's see if I can find it. But let me just remind you as well as I do that feel free. I know many people want to comment on issues we need to touch on what's missing on the show, on maybe a personal issue that you want to actually have sorted out. If that may be the case, just email to feedback@safm.co.za. Let's get to the news headlines. It's 3:30.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, I am on Delambana and a very good afternoon. The state in the Vusi Cat Matlala case says actress Tabuho Tobejane has fled the country as she fears for her life. The state is opposing bail for the 49-year-old businessman who appeared at the Alexandra Magistrates Court north of Johannesburg. Home Affairs Minister Dr. Leon Schreiber says nearly 80 million rand has been spent in the 2024-25 financial year on the deportation of illegal immigrants. And gunmen in Jerusalem, Israel, have killed at least 6 people and injured a number of others in an attack on buses near a busy road junction. Our full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in Parktown, slow moving towards Houghton Drive exit. The N1 northbound in Pretoria, queuing on the off-ramp to Rigel Avenue, and the N3 northbound in Bedfordview, slow moving on the link to the N12 east at Gilulis interchange. In KZN, on the N3 westbound, a stationary truck before the M13 Paradise Valley interchange. The N3 westbound also has a stationary vehicle reported after Ashburton. In Cape Town, on Swartklip Road in Tafelsig, protest action reported between Steve Biko Road and Baden-Powell Drive. Please do avoid at all costs. And Strand Road eastbound in Stickland, slow moving towards the R300 highway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
It's a very good afternoon to you. Welcome to it. The kickoff will happen and it's tomorrow. But let me just tell you, the Super Eagles, they have landed in Bloemfontein ahead of the 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifier against Bafana Bafana, and their top priority is to secure 3 points. Their NFF technical director and former Super Eagles captain Austin Egwavin had this to say.
Outsurance will do all they can to save you money on your car insurance premium. But what if they just can't? Well, they'll give you cash just for trying. That's right, just ask for 500 Rand cash. But wait, there's more. If you don't save and have been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years, you can ask for 1,500 Rand cash. Savings or cash, you always get something out.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands.
What does you always get something out mean to you, Lorette?
Outsurance made it possible for us to live our dream to travel more with the money in our pocket that we save.
Let me know, what is it?
725. It was unbelievable. My husband, he sits there on the chair and he's just nodding his head and say, yes, yes, yes. This is really not just an advertisement. This is really real.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
I'm Andile Ncube umzilankathi siqongo sinoJoji Ntombi eyazi ngisala ke suka le emzimkhulu egugweni ila ke inkaba yasala khona. Your son got a star on his forehead, brightens your every mood when you get as old as I am. What do I like about Mzansi or love? You know, it's home. Beyond football, I enjoy cricket. You know, or Andile ngesixhosa go Ace Mabheka. You know, my favorite nickname of all time, like Captain Yama 2000. In everything we do, just like the African continent is the beginnings of life, right? Just like women are the beginnings of life. The SABC and SABC Sport is exactly that.
Catch Andile, Captain Yama 2000 Ncube on match days, live on Latuma. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Do you know what's hiding behind the colorful packaging of unhealthy food? Big food companies target children with unhealthy packaged foods that hide high levels of sugar, salt, and fat, which could lead to heart disease, diabetes, and hypertension. But the truth is hidden from consumers. Front-of-package warning labels are a proven solution to help consumers make informed decisions. The government must act now. We have the right to know what's in our food. Demand front-of-package warning labels. Sign the petition on heala.org, HEALA.org, by the 30th of September.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Welcome back. Let's go straight to the former Super Eagles story with their NFF technical director and captain Austin Eguavoen, who's in Bloemfontein with the Nigeria football team, and their priority is to secure those 3 points against Bafana Bafana come tomorrow.
Massive game. We have no choice. Nigeria has no choice. We respect South Africa, but we've gone in for 3 points. Simple as that.
What does that win yesterday do for this game?
Oh, motivational. Motivate us more. You know, it was a hard-earned victory, and we fought for it. At the end of it, we got it. So we have to consolidate back home here to get another 3 points. Simple as that.
In the meantime, rugby, the Springboks centre Ethan Hooker says the team's goal of winning the rugby championship is still alive despite losing 2 of their opening 3 matches, including Saturday's 24-17 defeat to the All Blacks at Eden Park. The 22-year-old made his first test appearance against New Zealand. Hooker admits that it wasn't the result he dreamed of.
Yeah, of course, that's the ultimate goal for us is to win the championship. So I think we're all going to get on the same page this week and just grind it out, and hopefully next week we come out on top.
Staying with rugby, the World Player of the Year, Ellie Kildan, will miss England's Rugby World Cup quarter-final against Scotland next weekend after sustaining a head injury in the Red Roses' 47-7 win over Australia. On to golf, and DP World Tour champions Tristan Lawrence and Dylan Naidu will join an already strong South African contingent for this year's Nedbank Golf Challenge at the Gary Player Country Club from the 4th to the 7th of December. The duo adds to a South African challenge that includes PGA Tour winner Aldrich Potgieter and multiple DP Tour champion Christian Bezuidenhout, as well as Sunshine Tour Courier Guy Order of Merit champion Daniel van Tonder. It's all happening at the Gary Player Country Club. We'll swing back with more sport. That's on the National Pulse. I'm Zai Khan.
Thanks for that, Zai. We certainly will connect. And I think it is a cause for concern. The Boks losing 2 of their opening matches. It's a big deal. How do they recover? I wonder what you think. More sport in an hour.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, let's, in the meantime, we're going to talk about developments, huge cause for concern, in fact, about some developments regarding a South African company in Zambia that comes up imminently, and we look at the objectives of the BRICS Leaders Summit, all of that coming up shortly. But for now, let's touch on the issue that we started the show with, teenage pregnancies. Should it be called a pandemic?
Ashraf, the issue of teenage pregnancy, pandemic, they won't implement such. There's no money there. Socialism, they won't benefit, so there's no political interest. They'll just let it go like that. You won't see the president dropping his trip to oversee just to give us the speech about the teenage pregnancy. Never forget.
Okay, that's one. Let's see if we can get to further. In fact, we'll get to Tulani now. Tulani, hi.
How are you? Ashraf, you raised something very important. You said to them, it's a wish list. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, Tulani. Yeah.
You said it's a wish list. And when you said it's a wish list, I thought to myself, you're absolutely correct. To say that we need to get the president involved, to say that we need to get the churches, the NGOs involved, it's a wish list. I come from a poor community in Mpumalanga where girls get raped on a weekly basis and the police do nothing. The elders do nothing. But when I was much younger, we had Ubuntu, meaning that the community held the men accountable. And I compare my life now back then to what it is now. My daughter feels safe in her community. The girls that I go back to at home in Mpumalanga, they don't feel safe. It's a mindset. It's a process. And this is what I think that the government needs to do. One, the government needs to give our girls and boys activities to do. So things that keep them away from dangerous environments and situations. Sport activities, extracurricular activities. And secondly, I think we need to start paying attention to men's psychology, especially men that are no longer working or men that are at the end of their careers. There has to be some form of community programs that targets those men. They can't just be left with shebeens and looking at girls as activities and women and young girls. It's a psychological process. We need to break it. And to blame the police as well. I thought about it as I was listening to the other listener, and I thought to myself, blaming the police just seems a little bit off, because the police can only do so much. They're not involved in our conversations that we have men to men. Men need to start taking accountability. And this is to every man listening to this who has ever thought of a little girl in a very bad way. I'm telling you right now, what you're doing is wrong, and you know it is wrong. So stop it and hold yourself accountable, and don't wait for us to hold you accountable. It's a you problem.
Well,
Thank
Thulani,
you,
I think you make so much sense, and you're spot on about that, the police can only do so much. I mean, yes, they need to up their game, we know that, but they are under-resourced, they're unmotivated, they're struggling with so many different crime hotspots around the country. How are they able to get this one right? So we are all vulnerable. Well, I mean, here's a thought, and I'm not saying I know the answer, but what role can, and I'm not talking about community policing, what role can the community elders play in engendering a morality that will steer us away from child rape? In particular, I mean, there's 100 things they can do, but we're talking about that and maybe just other theft as well within the communities. Because is it true to say that if we talk about Ubuntu, is it true to say that with the onset of democracy and a very institutionalized police service, sometimes then the communities take a backseat in the same way, for example, the UDF took a backseat when the ANC returned as an unbanned party in South Africa, and yet they were very grassroots. So should we be looking at it very differently and saying there must be community forums, not police, community organizations that come together with the elders and set the agenda for those communities, so it works on a community or a ward-to-ward basis. If anybody has some really solid ideas, then I would like to know. Right, let's talk about Zambia next.
You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM.
So I certainly welcome your thoughts and suggestions, because I think we need to know them, whatever they are. Moving beyond the obvious of just, we're going to, it's a crime, we're going to lock them up, and it's not succeeding anyway, right? What more, especially at community level, can the elders of a community play in stamping out rape? Just all rape, doesn't matter even if it's adults, but just rape, and then a specific focus against teenage rape. In the meantime, let's talk about, let's move to Zambia, in fact. So listen to this story. A South African company has been accused of providing access to toxic lead-bearing waste in the Zambian city of Kabwe. And this despite immense health risks for local residents. Kabwe is one of the most lead-polluted places around the world, mainly because of contamination from a former mine that was never cleaned up around just after it closed in 1994. So let's get the story as to what the problem is and who are the South Africans who are behind this too. What needs to happen next? Alan Ngari is the Advocacy Director for Africa at Human Rights Watch. Alan, you are now connected to the National Pulse. Hello.
Hello, great to be on your show. Thanks. This is a really important topic to discuss.
I certainly agree. So firstly, just so that we do not misunderstand it, what is the problem?
So like you started, you're right that there is a South African-owned company. It's a subsidiary of the company. Its name is Jubilee Metals Group. And the small-scale mining license has been given to a company called Enviro Processing Limited. in Zambia. It provides access to toxic lead-bearing waste material in Kabwe. Kabwe is a city that's about 100 kilometers outside of Lusaka. And this has been going on for a while. We have documented this movement of this toxic waste from what is referred to as Black Mountain, which is the deposit that was left there from mining back in the day from the colonial era in Zambia.
Okay, and so how long? I mean, we mentioned that the mine fell into disuse around 1994. So how long has this been continuing or going on? And so far as it being a very, very toxic environment?
So let me describe what Black Mountain is. And the first time I heard that term, I was perplexed myself. And it literally is a mountain of waste that's black in color because of lead. The color of lead is just think about a pencil. So that color black. These are deposits, waste from a former mine that was owned by Anglo American from around 1904. So mining has been going on for a while, and so the waste has been dumped in one particular place in Kabwe, causing this great big mountain, Black Mountain. That's what the residents call it. So these lead deposits, the waste themselves, are sitting there, and there's been environmental degradation over the years. What Human Rights Watch has documented is that this waste itself is now being further mined. So there's a concession that's been given to a company to mine the waste, so the tailings themselves, to refine it for zinc, because there is zinc there as well. And so that lead dust and lead poisoning is spreading as this remining or scavenging, as the local call it, of this Black Mountain is happening around Kabwe.
Okay. Now, let's talk about the South African company. What can you tell us about them?
Well, we have been in touch with this company. We wrote to them. We've had quite some engagement with them. They have denied selling the waste material, but we have obtained a copy of a contract addendum. It details the agreement between EPL, which is that the Zambian company that is a subsidiary of the Jubilee Metals. And it also names other players, local as well as Chinese companies. And the addendum essentially states that one of those companies, the local companies, is buying zinc tailings from EPL, the subsidiary of the South African company, and the other companies are also purchasing the same from the Zambian company. So the addendum goes into some details about what exactly is the movement of this material, and that's really the concern that we have. We have alerted the Zambian authorities, and very happy to note that there has been 4 Chinese companies in late August that media has reported that there has been suspension of their operations, but it does not affect the one company, Union Star Industry, which is named in the agreement. So that continues its operations. And so that's really the concern that we have, that this toxic material, particularly harmful to children and others in the community, continues to be moved.
So what then is the recourse from, say, organizations like Human Rights Watch and, say, the Zambian government? Meaning, one thing is talking about this company or the company of the people, but I mean, can they be charged? What are the procedures in that country?
Well, we have been engaging the Zambian government for a while, not just ourselves, but together with a group of civil society organizations by the name the Alliance of Organizations Against Lead for a Lead-Free Kabwe. And we are asking the government of Zambia to develop a comprehensive remediation program for Kabwe's lead waste. This needs to be an actual program that assists with cleaning up, remediating the entire Kabwe city. Its residents are suffering from harmful, cognitive developmental challenges for the children. There are health, respiratory challenges for everybody in the community, from inhaling the soil itself has lead levels that obviously would poison any crops that come from there. So there's a need to remediate the entire city. The Zambian government should also initiate, or rather look in its legislation and suspend the actions of these companies. So for this specific discussion that we're having about all these companies that are processing the waste and the tailings, there needs to be a suspension of those activities, those operations immediately, so that then the lead is not transferred throughout the city of Kabwe.
Let me just go back to this one point before I let you go, is that, one thing is you engaging with the Zambian government. Is the Zambian government engaging with these mining companies to the point, is it simply a case of like, we don't like what you're doing, or can you charge them? Because there's an absence of that coming from the conversation.
No, definitely the Zambian government actually needs to take responsibility for this. In fact, we are saying that the Zambian government has facilitated the removal of this harmful waste by helping to establish One Chitofu, which is one of the companies that we name, but also issuing licenses to EPL, which is the subsidiary that's owned by the South African company for this small-scale mining. But also we're saying that under Zambian law, the government has an authority to sanction these companies because of the unsafe working environment or uncontrollable pollution. So as far as we are concerned, the Zambian government has that obligation and should actually, enforce its own law, but also could be found liable before regional courts as well, if needs be.
And I take it at this point in time, in the absence of a formal charge, I mean, are those names all anonymous in terms of the South African company and the leadership of that company?
No, all this is public information.
Okay. Is that something, just the last thing, that you can engage the South African government with, although the investment is in Zambia?
It's very interesting. We do think that there is a level of oversight that should be done, at least from the South African entity's side. We have been looking into the Mining Council of South Africa, and we know that it has really good programs around advocating for health and safety and ensuring that mining operations of South African mining companies are done within the remit of ESG, environmental safeguards and governance. And so there is, to some extent, some remit that we could make to the authorities in South Africa on this matter, and we'll be looking to do so that then the South African company involved in Zambia would also be held to account.
Okay, and that's where we shall leave it to Alan Ngari, Advocacy Director for Africa at Human Rights Watch. Much appreciate your time. You may want to comment on that if you know the goings on in Zambia, particularly in the city of Kabwe. But let's talk about the BRICS Leaders Summit next.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation.
So there's a BRICS Leaders Summit all underway, and the issue of the BRICS nations, I think, has gained even further importance from the time there were just 4 countries, then 5 with South Africa joining, now more countries, but also in terms of how they are perceived by the US President Donald Trump, right? And part of their policies towards those countries. So let's find out what's happened at the BRICS Leaders Summit. Kailitle Kumalo with me, senior reporter for the SABC News International Desk. Good to connect with you as always on the National Pulse.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Ashraf.
Thank you. Right, so it's just first frame it. What is the BRICS Leaders Summit?
Well, obviously, it's a very important gathering, albeit it's virtual. Ashraf, it's all about just looking at the current global environment, especially with the sweeping tariffs from the US. So it's all about the BRICS countries really just looking at the impact, but also just calling for the reform of the current multilateral system. All of this happens, as you know, that September is a very critical month as a number of countries are getting ready for the UN General Assembly. So the BRICS countries, they're really speaking with one voice. So they're calling for the multilateralism to be upheld, but also really just denouncing these tariffs, saying that a fair global trading system is absolutely key for each and every country to thrive.
I think a big question, and you may tell us what's come through in terms of the clout the BRICS leaders really have. Do they?
Well, certainly, Ashraf. I think there is a very growing trend, and a lot of BRICS countries, they do realize that when you look at the geopolitics, they really have a very critical role to play, especially in the context of Global South, Ashraf. I mean, for example, just a short while ago, you had the Chinese President Xi Jinping emphasizing that economic globalization is irresistible trend of history. So anyone who's trying to retreat to self-imposed isolation will not be winning whatsoever. And I think this is just in reference to the United States of America, but also President Cyril Ramaphosa as well, Ashraf, has spoken as well, speaking about South Africa's position into these global issues. For example, talking about the very ramifications of these sweeping tariffs on South Africa's economy, but once again saying that Pretoria is in support of the fair global trading system.
So, what so far in terms of your observations, what for you are the key bullet points that stick out?
I think what is very key, Ashraf, is that obviously we are all in the midst of this changing a global order. Now, the BRICS countries are saying what could be our role, what could be our stake in terms of forging partnership, but also there's a very good support for South Africa's G20 presidency. So a lot of expectations from a number of countries in the global south, but also in the main. I think it's all about making sure that they really position themselves in a very, very good style, so to speak, Ashraf, especially because, I mean, for example, they do talk about these unilateral actions that are on the rise, saying that this is not good for the world economy. So blocs like BRICS should really just be very outspoken about this, as much as we saw those developments, Ashraf, with the Shanghai Security Cooperation Summits again. So a number of countries as well emphasizing that the issue of multilateralism should be at the core.
I mean, we speak to you at a time where it's 1 month since those tariffs set by the USA have been instituted. So it's a month anniversary right now, right? So what has come through in terms of this virtual summit, in terms of their analysis of the impact of the tariffs on all the BRICS nations, and maybe more so, some who are affected more than others. Certainly South Africa has been the brunt of, if not the tariff, certainly the outburst of the US president.
Well, very much so, Ashraf, especially, I mean, for example, a short while ago, you had President Cyril Ramaphosa saying that the unilateral tariff actions contributed to increasingly protectionist environment, posing great hardships and also danger to a number of countries, including South Africa. I think what is very important for South Africa, for example, Ashraf, is that the whole issue of calling for collaboration, diversification in terms of trade with a number of blocs, with a number of countries. So that's been a very key message coming from South Africa, but also the country really positioning itself, especially because quite a number of countries as well from the continent have joined BRICS. You also do have the Egyptian president, Fattah al-Sisi. But something that is quite interesting, Ashraf, is that the BRICS countries as well, they're very concerned about the current situation in the Middle East. For example, they still continue to call for a ceasefire and also for the two states to be respected in terms of making sure that the states in Palestine and also its borders are respected by the Israeli authorities, but of course calling for the hostages who are still in Gaza to be released as well.
Well, let's end with this. How much clout do the BRICS countries have? You just made the point about calling for a ceasefire and some mutual respect in that region. But B, even when countries like South Africa bear the brunt of Donald Trump's outbursts, I sort of see an absence of the other BRICS nations speaking for South Africa. I see them on their own.
Well, obviously, at times, Ashraf, countries, when they do make decisions, they always gauge their own national interest and then they'll respond. Others, they may want to sit on the fence. But what is very key is that this is a bloc that has really shown its clout in terms of its position, for example. And when you're talking about the shifting geopolitics, BRICS also is positioning itself as a very reliable partner to the world in terms of supporting, for example, the reforms of the global governance institutions, for example, your World Trade Organizations and also United Nations Security Council. And what is always interesting is that, I mean, you do have China as a permanent member of the UN Security Council, and so many times they've said they do support those reforms. But I think what is always a concern is that you do need a buy-in from other countries as well, so that you can see these actions being realized. And also, Ashraf, I mean, this is happening amid a very harsh geopolitical environment and also a number of issues. I mean, they say it's a proliferation of trade wars and also continued underdevelopment. And they say this is threatening the security and economic well-being of humanity. So the world must really act on these issues.
Okay, and that's where we can leave it. Lots of questions, lots of comments, and lots of unanswered questions, understandably so. And let's see how that develops with this the BRICS Leaders Summit currently underway. Kailitle Khumalo, as always, appreciate your time here on the National Pulse. As soon as I can, I want to hear from you, and I absolutely want to hear from you because you move the pulse. Right now, let's get the news. It's 4 o'clock with Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the top stories, calls for SABC's funding model issues to be resolved and millions spent on deportation of illegal immigrants. For SFM News, I am Ondela Mbana, and a very good afternoon. The chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies, Kusela Digo, has warned that SABC will collapse if its financial issues related to a funding model are not resolved. Digo was among the 4 chairpersons of the cluster committees in Parliament, briefing the media on various public matters on oversight in government. She reiterated her position that the SABC bill currently stalled before Parliament needs to be fast-tracked to assist the public broadcaster.
On the SABC is at a risk of collapse. It's burdened by unsustainable debt, outdated infrastructure, and a broken funding model. When we spoke about the SABC, and we said, amongst others, the withdrawing of the SABC bill is sounding a death knell on the institution. We were told we were being alarmist. Now, as we stand here today, Centec, which has its main client, the SABC, is bleeding more than 70 million rand per month to subsidize SABC's broadcast signal costs. This is unsustainable. Yet the SABC bill, which was essential to ensuring sustainability, remains stalled in this parliament.
The state in the Vusi Cat Matlala case says actress Tabuko Tobejane has fled the country as she fears for her life. The state is opposing bail for the 49-year-old businessman who appeared at the Alexandra Magistrates Court north of Johannesburg. Matlala is charged with the attempted murder of Tobejane, who was wounded during a shooting on the N1 near Sandton, north of Johannesburg in 2023. He's also facing charges of money laundering and conspiracy to commit murder. The case is adjourned until the 17th of this month for judgment on the bail application. State prosecutor Elise Leroux says Tobejane doesn't feel safe in the country.
Ms. Tobejane had fled the country out of fear for her life. And she communicated with the investigating teams on Mbele last night, indicating that she still fears for her life. That's why she will not return to South Africa. So her life, in a sense, has also changed forever after the shooting incident.
Home Affairs Minister Dr. Leon Schreiber says nearly 80 million rand has been spent in the 2024-25 financial year on the deportation of illegal immigrants. He was replying to a written parliamentary question by the Patriotic Alliance's Millicent Mutapa. Mutapa wanted a breakdown of the costs that the department has incurred in deporting illegal immigrants over the past 3 financial years. In the 2022-23 financial year, more than 32 million rand was spent, while over 67 million rand was spent for the 2023-24 financial year. The reply also revealed that more than 113,000 people were deported during this period. The South African National Taxi Council is calling on operators who have not applied for the Taxi Relief Fund to do so promptly. Applications are set to close on the 31 October and extensions will not be granted. Santaco says the TRF was introduced by the Department of Transport as a one-time financial support aimed at helping taxi operators recover from COVID-19's economic impact. Over 73,000 operators have benefited so far, receiving more than 414 million rands. Santaco spokesperson Matigidi Pala says over 400 million rand is additionally allocated for the current year, with eligible operators set to get 7,200 per operating license, including Scholar Transport Services. Pala says operators are encouraged to seize this opportunity for financial relief before the deadline.
In order for an operator to apply, they must submit the following documents: their certified copy of their ID, proof of residence, as well as a stamped bank confirmation letter. The applications can be submitted through a number of platforms, inclusive of online, through the National Department of Transport's website, where you will find the Taxi Relief Fund page on them. Alternatively, operators can also call their call center number on 0860-159-159.
Gunmen in Jerusalem, Israel, have killed at least 6 people and injured a number of others in an attack on buses near Busy Road Junction. They themselves were killed by a soldier and an armed civilian. Security officials say they're believed to be Palestinians from the occupied West Bank. The BBC's Yolandi Nell has the details from the scene of the shooting.
Dashcam footage captured the moment when a morning bus commute in Jerusalem turned into a deadly shooting attack. An off-duty Israeli soldier at the scene shot dead 2 suspected gunmen believed to have come from the occupied West Bank. This is usually a busy junction. It's near to Jewish settlements in East Jerusalem, and Palestinians and Israelis mix on the road. Under heavy guard, the Israeli Prime Minister came to see what had happened for himself.
Recapping the top story, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies, Khusela Diko, has warned that SABC will collapse if its financial issues related to a funding model are not resolved. I'm Wandila Mbana for SFM News Headlines at 4:30.
And for SAFM Sport, I'm Zai Khan. Welcome to it. We'll head straight to the football news, where Nigeria's Super Eagle Austin Egovin says tomorrow's World Cup qualifier against Bafana Bafana is a must-win for them. And in athletics, wait for Nika to decide on retirement after the World Championships. All the details just before 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound and four-ways has a stationary vehicle before Winnie Mandela Drive. The M1 southbound in Johannesburg slow-moving towards Crown Interchange, and the M1 northbound in Woodmead queuing towards Buccleuch Interchange. In KZN, the N3 westbound in Pietermaritzburg, a stationary vehicle after Ashburton. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound slow-moving towards Racecourse Road exit. The N1 outbound is slow-moving towards Okavongo Road, and the N2 outbound slow-moving towards Bunga Avenue. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This Heritage Month, SAFM invites you to journey into the past while shaping the future under the theme, Reimagine Our Heritage Institutions for a New Era. We celebrate the stories, traditions, and voices that define who we are as a nation. From vibrant conversations to thought-provoking debates, SAFM is where heritage meets innovation, connecting generations and keeping our culture alive in a changing world. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, the 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
I tell you, sometimes I look at some of the tweets that we have, and they're amongst the most fascinating you can get just for sparking of conversation. I mean, listen, look at this one here. Somebody called, Wall Street Maverick, maybe, saying Africa has 54 countries, Asia has 48 countries, there are 51 countries with a Muslim majority. Nobody from Africa, Asia, or any Muslim country needs to come to Europe or the USA for asylum. They have plenty of countries closer and more culturally aligned to them. Send them back. And then Elon Musk, quote, tweets saying, "This is not accidental. The radical left is importing voters, and it's a sure way to win if not stopped." And then South African, Panuel the Black Pen, tweeting to Elon Musk's response saying, "Who imported you from Africa into America to vote and influence politics?" I'll leave it at that. Elon Musk. This is the National Pulse. More to come. We'll have an update on some of the issues we've already discussed. Certainly want to welcome your thoughts, your calls on some of the comments we've already had in terms of what for you moves the National Pulse. To WhatsApp, you can do that right away. 30 seconds a voice note, max 0614 104 107, or you can call in live 086 000 2032. If you're tweeting, the hashtag the National Pulse will certainly get my attention. Now, in the meantime, we are somehow, horrific story after horrific story seems to follow us in South Africa. Listen to this one. 5 suspected criminals were shot dead in a gun battle with police in an informal settlement in Chatsworth outside Durban in the early hours of this morning. Now, what is the story? You may say, okay, they were shot dead, they were suspected criminals, but what brought that on in the first place? With me is Colonel Robert Netshwenda, who's the KZN police spokesperson. Appreciate you connecting with us, Colonel. Much appreciated joining us on the National Pulse.
Afternoon to you, Ashraf, and to the listeners.
Thank you. So give us the backstory to, clearly is a horrific story that's played out.
Yes, it is a horrific story, and these are the kind of things that we don't want to see as the police. We always make a call that when police arrive and they introduce themselves and they want to talk to you or they want to arrest you or to search you, yours is to surrender and let the police do their work. If they find what they find and they arrest you, so be it. If not, they will let you go. But when you take the war to the police will definitely take the war back.
In this case, the good news in this case is that suspected criminals have been shot dead, which means their plans were thwarted. What was their plan in the first place?
These are the suspects that police were looking for. There's been, we can say there's been a number of cases that were happening in the areas of Mariani Hill, Kwandengezi, areas of Msunduzi, where there were murders. There were extortion cases. There were also house robberies. And our intelligence identified the suspects, and we found where they were, which was their hideout spot in Chatsworth, at informal settlement. And when we pounced on them in the early hours of Monday, today, the suspect opened fire towards the police. And when that happened, police are left with no choice but to react and respond with fire to protect themselves and those who were around, because this was a shack just in the middle of many shacks there. So if that situation went out of hand, we could be having collateral damage. So police had to act with speed, and in that shootout, 5 suspects were shot and fatally wounded.
Well, I mean, I think your point is well made. Therefore, what was the response of the people in the community, at the time when the shooting occurred?
Pardon?
What was the response of the people in the community when they'd heard that these suspected criminals, in fact, were all killed?
The people who were commenting there when we were doing our job, they were saying, yes, most of the time we hear people saying that police are heavy-handed. But we were here. Police arrived, they were in peace. There was a time where suspects were a bit cooperative before somebody shot at the police. They were saying if that person did not shoot, maybe the suspect would have been saved. And that thing is that they did not know them as criminals. One of them, who was said to be 30 years of age, told the people there that he was running away from criminals who were wanted by the police, so he didn't want to be part of them. He wanted to be safe, not knowing that where he is part of the criminals who are terrorizing communities out there. So they come there, they hide there, then go and commit their crime somewhere else.
Which gets me thinking. We had a conversation earlier on about the high rate of rape in communities, particularly rape of teenagers, right? And the point that was absent, besides the work of the police, was that where are the community leaders? Where are the elders, the moral leaders of our societies at a community to community level? Let's take this community here. Where are the model leaders for them regarding just the widespread prevalence of criminals in so many communities?
We go out to communities as the police to encourage community members to root out crime by reporting criminals who are living amongst them, because we must not shy away from the fact that these criminals are living within communities. They are known. Some of them are glorified in the communities. That this one is untouchable, this one is feared. They even have got names that they go by in the communities. So our cause remains the same, that the community members, even parents, they must expose their children who are being involved in criminal activities. Because if a suspect is 17-year-old and is shooting at the police, that person, that is still a school-going age. A parent should be having control over such a child. But somehow we find ourselves having to deal with young boys, teenagers, as criminals. You go to Inanda where they say there's a gang. You arrest those boys, they are 15, 16, 17. Boys, not even men. But nobody in the communities speaks out. Yes, we appreciate those who tell us where they are and we operate. We arrest them, and if they fight, we win the fight as the police, always. And we will continue to ensure that whoever is heavy-handed on the police must respond with the professional force.
Maybe here's the last thing regarding, you mentioned that police responded because these suspected criminals, shot fire firstly, right? And again, it brings me to this point, it is so prevalent that criminals are not just criminals, but they've actually got firearms. It's normal. What's that study about how to track down how come so many people have illegal firearms?
We have a problem of guns in the society, illegal guns. And these guns, they become illegal when they are in the wrong hands. Because most of these guns, it's either a person who owned a gun legally was robbed of the gun. Then it becomes illegal because it's in the hands of the wrong person. In this case, there was one homemade firearm which was found. And there's been several incidents in the province where we found homemade guns at crime scenes. So we need to find the police, where are these guns being manufactured? Because a year or so ago, there was a man arrested in Umlazi who was making guns. So we believe that there could be somebody somewhere who's still making these illegal guns, which use real ammunition, by the way. So it becomes a dangerous real gun that kills a person. Yes, there are those few incidents there and there when a police officer will be killed and they take the firearm or robbed of the firearm. So we need to guard ourselves as well as officers that we must protect our weapon.
Okay, let's leave it at that. It's a cause for concern, but in this case, thank goodness, wannabe criminals have been thwarted, but they've paid for it with their lives, right? Colonel Robert Nechuwanda, the KZN police spokesperson, reflecting on the fact that 5 suspected criminals were shot dead in a gun battle with police in an informal settlement in Chatsworth today. We have another story about, criminality, and it comes from Gauteng. We'll touch on that after this.
You are listening to SAFM Radio this Heritage Month. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
So let's talk about a team of Gauteng traffic wardens who came under fire at the Davidson railway station in Ekurhuleni in the early hours of Sunday. What actually happened there? Again, they were targeted. Who are the people who targeted them? What's their position in terms of their own health? And what are the lessons to learn from it? With me is Elijah Mtlanga, the spokesperson for the Gauteng provincial government. In fact, Elijah, good to chat with you. It's the first time we're not talking education, but this, I suppose, is an education in its own right.
Yeah, Ashraf, good afternoon. Thank you so much for this opportunity. You're correct. We're talking crime today.
Well, listen, best wishes in your position, speaking as the spokesperson for the Gauteng provincial government, which does mean we're going to talk to you a lot more about things like this, right? So tell me what has happened here.
Well, Ashraf, there was a funeral that took place in KZN involving our wardens, and they were on their way home. That they were dropping each other off. And in Davidson, where they were going to drop off one, they came across people who were on the road standing there. And when they saw the traffic warden's vehicle, they started shooting. So it wasn't even a case of a regular routine patrol by our wardens. They were returning from a funeral of a colleague. So when it's a funeral of a colleague, that's considered duty. So they came under attack because those people suspected that the wardens were coming to them to check on what was happening. So that's how our people got injured.
Okay. The good news, you just made the point, they injured. What is their overall health?
Well, some are able to relate in terms of what happened yesterday. They're able to speak. The driver who was there also was able to tell us that he still has a bullet lodged on his shoulder, but he was able to talk to us about what happened minutes before and the commotion that ensued once the shooting started. The other one is badly injured in the legs, but she's able to talk, and they are grateful that they are alive. And it's just the one who's in a critical condition in ICU. Only the Premier was able to see that one, but also unconscious because of the condition. So that's the only serious case that we have at the moment. But as for the others, we're able to talk to them and interact. And the Premier was able to convey his message of support to them, and he wished them a speedy recovery.
What for you, in conclusion, are the big lessons to learn from this?
Well, that any group of people who are standing somewhere could be criminals, because in this case, they just started shooting at our wardens, thinking that they were going to be arrested. But the Premier says that these wardens actually took bullets on behalf of other people who were going to be victims of the crimes that were going to be committed by those heavily armed men. So it means that as society, as a people, we really need to be on high alert at any given time, particularly at night, because this is when it happened. So we really need to be on high alert, but also work with authorities, making sure that we report them and that they're brought to book, because as of now, we still don't know who they are, but the police have committed that they will arrest them as quickly as possible.
Yeah, well, I would expect it. Here's the last thing. Just about every day we speak about issues very, very similar to this, right? And there is a sense, by and large, of utter helplessness, meaning that if criminals are hell-bent on wanting to rob people and kill them, to get their way, they're going to do so, and they believe statistically the odds may well favor them. That means, they think they can get away with it.
Well, it is the case, but we're grateful that the Premier had the wisdom of establishing this particular group or this unit because they increased the presence of law enforcement. Where they were, the normal, ordinary police officers were not present at that point. So it means that in the absence of the traffic wardens, people would... It would be worse, actually. So it means that now with their presence there and the fact that they're able to contribute to crime fighting, it helps in terms of providing a sense of safety to some of our people. But of course, there's so much more that needs to be done because we know that they are not armed, but we are working hard to make sure that they are able to be provided with the resources that they need for them to be able to reply when the criminals are shooting at them, as it happened in the incident that we were just talking about before this one in Chatsworth, where the suspects were shot dead because police were firing back. So in this situation where the crime wardens couldn't fire back, then it becomes a problem. But we are working together with the Minister of Police and the Minister of Justice to find a solution to this one.
Okay, becomes a problem, a big problem. I would think it is. Elijah Mhlanga, the spokesperson for the Gauteng Provincial Government. Appreciate your time here on the National Pulse.
This Heritage Month, SAFM invites you to journey into the past while shaping the future under the theme Reimagine Our Heritage Institutions for a New Era. We celebrate the stories, traditions, and voices that define who we are as a nation. From vibrant conversations to thought-provoking debates, SAFM is where heritage meets innovation, connecting generations and keeping our culture alive in a changing world. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Okay, I want to hear from you. By the way, we'll have an update on the Matlanga Commission because it was a briefing today. So we'll get some sound clips from Jeremy Michaels and many others too as the countdown begins, because it all starts next week. Well, talking about countdown, let's get the countdown to you talking. You're on the pulse. I need to hear you and feel you. Lowit in Guyana, you're live. Go for it. What's your point?
Okay, Mr. Ashraf. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, my brother. I've got this issue here. Last week, Premier Lesotho, he is said to be petitioning the parliament or the legislators, the lawmakers, to intervene with regard to the uncontrollable influx and the mushrooming of illegal foreigners who are allegedly erecting shacks around a part of Gauteng. My question, Ashraf, is this. How did we arrive to this point? Because we have got a legislation, a provision in South Africa, or a legislative provision that directs the Home Affairs. That is section number 34 of Immigration Act 13 of 2002. It dictates the Home Affairs officials to arrest and detain and deport the illegal immigrants with the assistance of the police in most cases. But now it seems like there's no synergy between the police and the Home Affairs. Hence, we've got this problem. And I wonder whether the legislators, they are going to be heeding this call, because apparently they are not bothered with what we are having in South Africa. Because if they were bothered about this issue, something has to be done. So that, yes.
All right. Interesting you say you wonder there's no synergy. Let me leave it at that, because I'd like to get other people's thoughts on that, the synergy or the absence thereof between Home Affairs and the South African Police Service, whether it's police or border control, all around the issues of foreign nationals in our country. Lowit in Guyana, thank you for your call. Another one on a similar issue, I would think. Glenn in Protea. Glenn, hello.
Hi, how's it?
Yeah, good indeed. Go for it.
I'm good, man. I just want to comment regarding the spokesperson of Gauteng, Elijah.
Yeah.
Regarding the issue of Amapanyazo.
Yeah.
I'm very concerned, because those guys, they get full trainings and they also get the firearm training with some different service provider that was awarded by the C2 of Joburg. And they pay those training provider to train them firearm. These guys, they're free to use the firearm. They got a statement of result from PFTC, Professional Training Council of South Africa. But I'm surprised why the C2 of Joburg, they don't want to purchase the firearms and then give those Panyazas the firearm, because they're putting their lives on risk.
So when you say you're surprised, what do you deduce from it?
Come again?
When you say you're surprised, what would you conclude from all of that?
I'm surprised. Those guys, they're doing roadblocks, midnight, 24/7. And they're not armed, and they're working on the street. Remember, on the street, on a daily basis, we express a lot of criminal activities that is happening in South Africa, most in Gauteng. And if you check this incident, it's happened in Davidson. We know Davidson is a high-risk area.
Okay. Well, look, you've put it on the agenda to Glenn in Project Glenn. Thank you for that. Again, I welcome others who listen in who may want to agree with Glenn or, in fact, rebut it and give their own thoughts on that. We'll get your calls as well and further comments shortly, but not quite now, in a few minutes' time. But now it's time for the news heads. It's 4:30.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, President Cyril Ramaphosa says the unilateral tariff actions by the U.S. are contributing to an increasingly protectionist environment, which poses great hardships and danger for the countries of the global south. The chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies, Khusela Diko, has warned that SABC will collapse if its financial issues related to a funding model are not resolved. And Israel says it has accepted U.S. President Donald Trump's proposal for a ceasefire in Gaza. For its part, Hamas says that it is ready to sit at the negotiating table at once. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Rose.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N12 R24 westbound in Bedfordview, slow moving on both routes towards Giluli's interchange. The N1 northbound in Midrand has a crash before Allendale Road, and the N1 southbound in Pretoria, a stationary truck at Rigel Avenue. In KZN, the N3 northbound in Howick, a jackknife truck reported near Lions River, so you asked to expect delays, and on the N3 westbound, queuing traffic towards Cliffdale. In Cape Town, on Main Road, slow-moving traffic through Cork Bay. On Swartklip Road in Khayelitsha, protest action between Steve Beaker Road and Baden-Powell Drive, and you asked to avoid at all cost. And Main Road outbound in Observatory, slow-moving towards the N2 highway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Welcome to it. We're building up to the big encounter. That's tomorrow. And Nigeria's Super Eagles, they've landed in Bloemfontein ahead of the 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifier against Bafana Bafana. And the NNF technical director and former captain of the Super Eagles, Austin Eguavoen, has described the clash as a must-win, with Nigeria sitting 6 points behind South Africa in Group C. He says there's plenty at stake beyond just the points.
Many times, it can go either way, but this is a different game, It's a World Cup qualifiers. So the weight behind this is massive. We all know what we want. South Africa has gone for it, respected team, very good team. Hugo Broos, the coach, I know very well, way back in Belgium. And we've got the quality as well. They do also. But they say both teams want it so bad. At the end of the day, we will try to just triumph.
And moving on to some more exciting news. This time we look at the Springboks, with the centre Ethan Hooker says the Boks are determined to bounce back. In Saturday's Rugby Championship rematch against the All Blacks in Wellington, Hooker earned his first test, and that was a start in Auckland amidst the intensity of Eden Park and the haka lesson. The 22-year-old has again been backed by coach Rassie Erasmus for the second test.
Yeah, it was a very surreal experience for me. Just being at Eden Park, the vibe, the energy, it was all unbelievable. And it was just very privileged to say I've played a test match there.
And the world 400-meter record holder Wade van Niekerk has revealed that he will only make a decision on whether to retire from the World Senior Athletics Championships, which takes place from Saturday until 13 September in Tokyo. Van Niekerk, who has qualified in the men's 200 meters, says his decision depends on how he performs in both his individual race and the 4x400 meter relay.
It's a tough one. It's 26 next year. Yeah, man, I think let's see how this year goes. I am leaning towards looking at what the end of my career looks like, but at the end of the day, it's not in my hands. I'm just leaving it all in God's hands, and if the performances are there and the body's healthy, might just give it another go. But at the same time, I think I just have to check what my priorities look like and then go from there.
And finally, cricket. The Proteas women have finalised their 15-player squad for the Cricket World Cup later this month in India and Sri Lanka. But opener Lara Goodall has missed out despite her experience of more than 50 ODIs. Selectors say her recent inconsistency has cost her a place. Well, we'll be back swinging with more sport at the top of the hour. For, well, here, the National Pulse, I'm Zai Khan.
September is Deaf Awareness Month, a time to celebrate the deaf community, promote inclusion, empowerment, and break communication barriers. Let's listen with our hearts and not our ears. Learn and embrace a South African Sign Language. Join us throughout September for commemoration events, activities that educate, connect, and inspire. Visit our website, foundationnima.org, for more information. This is an SABC-supported initiative.
The green and gold of Mzansi Africa and the green and white of Nigeria have a massive rivalry in search of victory. Bafana Bafana tackles the Super Eagles. The South clashes with the West. This is the FIFA World Cup African qualifier. South Africa versus Nigeria on Tuesday, 9 September at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC Plus and SABC2. Also available on SABC radio stations at 6 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Indeed, let's get to the markets with Makwe Masilela from Makwe Fund Managers. You've got lots to talk about. Let's start with AVI or AVI yearly results. Tell me about that.
Yes, afternoon to the listeners. Ashraf, in a weak demand environment, the group managed to hold its ground in a period where their fashion retail portfolio was impacted by supply chain issues and closure of Green Cross, and also AGI fishing performance improved but partly offset by poor abalone demand and constrained selling prices, as we last saw with the Sea Harvest interims. Their revenue was up a mere 1%, profits headline earnings per share up 6.1%, and the final dividend also up 6.1%. And Ashraf, another big US jobs report is coming up, and it will probably want to look good either. How many jobs the US economy created from April 2024 to March 2025, a span that bridged the transition from the Biden administration to Trump, and speculation that the Fed might lower rates more aggressively caused Treasury yields to nosedive. Investors are weighing the prospect of lower rates against growing concerns over a cooling labor market and the economy, and focus this week will be on the August CPI coming out of the US. And as most of the tariffs, I should remember, they took effect as from August, and they've been saying they're inflationary. So oil prices regaining some of last week's losses. Traders saw OPEC plus output hike being modest, and there's also concerns over the possibility of more sanctions on Russian crude. Then we see Brent crude is up 0.7% at $65 a barrel, and gold prices surged to new record highs at the back of interest rate cut expectations. And we see gold is up 1% at 632, platinum above 1% at 1,383, and stocks are rising on bets that inflation won't derail US interest rate cut, with the JSE up 1%, lifted mainly by our resources, and the rand firm to 0.2% against the dollar, 17.55, 23.75 against the pound, and 20.61 against the euro.
Thanks for that, Mark. We're right. Don't forget, Jimmy Moyaha comes up with an hour of the SFM market update, 6 to 7 this evening. Well, we're going to hear about the goings on at the Madlanga Commission right after this.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Okay, so we're going to get to your calls very shortly. First-time callers, regular callers, more than once, male, female, old and young. You are all most welcome to listen in and actually call in on the show, right, on whatever the issues are that you think moves the national pulse. Well, there's no question about that the issue of the Madlanga Commission is topmost on the minds of people, besides the issues of the national dialogue, because this gets into the very heart of South Africa's state security and whether it's been compromised or not. So we know that it's happening next week, right? Should have started 1st of September. Well, the spokesperson for the Commission is Jeremy Michaels, and he gave us a general update on the plans.
Update all South Africans on the progress made by the Commission and to take the public into confidence regarding preparations for the much-anticipated public hearings. Since President Cyril Ramaphosa formally proclaimed the Judicial Commission of Inquiry by way of Government Gazette on the 23rd of July 2025, and since our first media briefing on 28 July 2025, we've made significant progress in establishing the Commission whilst simultaneously conducting investigations into the allegations made by Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, and we've also been consulting witnesses. As we are seated here, the Commission's senior team, except for those who are present with us, are seized with preparations for the commencement of the Commission's hearings next Wednesday, the 17th of September. I'll return to those preparations shortly. On the progress we've made with regard to setting up the Commission, the proclamations establishing the Commission and the regulations governing its operation were published in the Government Gazette on the 22nd of August 2025. The proclamation and regulations govern the proceedings of the Commission, and the documents are available online at the Government Printing Works. That's gpw.online.co.za/government-gazettes, and can be found under the date, the 22nd of August, and it was sponsored by the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. I should have said that we are also joined in one row back from the Commission's team by DDG TT from the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. That's Tabiso TT. Working together with the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, which has the legal mandate to assist commissions of inquiry in setting up, we have taken delivery of most of the necessary physical and ICT infrastructure. The Commission's hearings will take place here in the main auditorium of the Bridget Mabandla Justice College in Central Pretoria. As you can see, if we look around, the auditorium has been repurposed specifically for the hearings, with the necessary alterations having been effected by the Department of Public Works and again facilitated by the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development.
Okay, that's not all. I think there's a natural anxiety, concerns, skepticism really from many people about, commission after commission in terms of what's going to happen next. So, two things. The last thing would be like, what are the findings? What's going to be done about them? But the first one is like, what about the witnesses? So here's Jeremy Michaels.
The Commission has simultaneously been in consultation with a number of other witnesses whose details, based on security considerations, we are not at liberty to divulge. The preparations for calling a witness are intricate, and it's important for the public to understand. I am not going to elaborate on the details involved. Suffice to say that there is a lot of legal and investigative work which goes into such preparations. It's also important to clarify that this work was delayed by the procurement challenges which arose with regard to the ICT systems, and in particular, issues with data security, having regard to the nature of investigations which the Commission must conduct, and the technical sophistication of the parties it must investigate. With the procurement, training and testing completed, the preparations are on track. Until we were sure that these systems were fully functional and that our electronic records could not be securely stored, we could not have proceeded responsibly with those preparations. The Commission is still in consultation with Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi. It has reserved him and plans to continue those consultations throughout this week, as well as the early part of next week, ahead of the first public hearing to be held next Wednesday, the 17th of September 2025.
Right, so here's a big one. The advocate Matthew Chaskelson, SC, Senior Counsel, evidence leader, says the Madlanga Commission's findings are, and you need to put this in inverted commas, they're not binding. It can only make recommendations to the President.
The question was, are our findings binding? And there the law is clear, our findings are not binding. All that we can do is make a recommendation to the President. Our recommendation doesn't bind the President, it doesn't bind the people in respect of whom we make those recommendations or make those findings. So essentially the function of this body is to conduct a public hearing for the purposes of making recommendations to the President. We can't make we don't make findings that are binding. The President, we hope, will act on recommendations that are made, but our recommendations are not binding on the President or indeed on anybody else. The question was...
Okay, so there we are. I mean, I suppose we do know that. That's why it's a commission. It's not a court of law. But, if it's not binding, how much clout does it really have? And perhaps you may want to consider just adding your own thoughts to that, because what we have next is our own commission. It's called You, and I to get a sense of what your pulse tells you. So let's hear you out after this.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Okay, more to consider, but I certainly want to hear what you have to say. So let's get some of the issues that we've touched on. The issues of teen pregnancy is a key part of today's show. Here's another comment.
May peace be upon you, Ashraf, and everyone across the world. Ashraf, this is Tamahapudle speaking. The only solution to teenage pregnancy, and even it's going to stop HIV/AIDS, is criminalization of sex out of marriage. That's all.
Okay, you think that's possible in South Africa, which is a country that is religious in the sense many people are, predominantly Christian. I think, 70-80%, but sizable amounts of other faiths like Islam and Christianity and Judaism. Islam and Hinduism and Judaism and many others too. But we're a secular democracy, so that would fall into those spaces. You think there's a space for that? I just wonder what you may think about that. Let's hear it.
Ashraf, the issue of teenage pregnancy, pandemic, they won't implement such. There's no money there. That's socialism. They won't benefit, so there's no political interest. They'll just let it go like that. He wants to see the president dropping his trip to oversee just to give us the speech about the teenage pregnancy. Never forget.
Okay, that's one comment on teenagers. Here's another.
Ashraf, good afternoon. Anyone who rapes anyone below the age of 16 must just be arrested and be castrated. That's my take, because this is serious. Our future, our girls will not have a better future in.
Okay, castrated. You know, that's a conversation we've had. A caller has done it a couple of times, saying we have got to include it. Would you go for that?
Dumela Ntate Ashraf Nhlanhla here, proud grade art teacher from the VAL. You know, the issue of teenage pregnancy is very sad, but we must also look at it in this way. Not only must we increase conviction rate and arrest the criminals that are doing this, but we must also look at it in a cultural and religious way, because there are some people that are doing it and then they are telling us about culture and religion.
Okay, there we are. You see, I wonder what you make of that. And I certainly think there's some original thoughts on that. But would you turn this issue on its head in terms of the relationship between society and criminality and young people?
Ashraf Gada, it's a Yalezo here in Mtata. I think this issue there in KZN of youngsters involved in such crimes, I mean, the root problem is the issue of I could say poor parenting and family structures that are not up to standard, especially within the poor black communities. I mean, how can a 16-year-old stay with friends? A child under the age of 18 years should be monitored at all times, should be staying with parents or other people who are old.
But when you say all times, meaning what? Don't even go to school? I mean, just think about what you're saying. Don't go to school. Don't go out with your friends. Don't go and watch movies. Don't go and play sport. Just stay at home. Maybe it's a point because we live in such a crime-ridden society, but that's not natural. I mean, that should not be the way. Why should they change? What we need to change is the perpetrators.
Ashraf and the SFM listener, you know what, Ashraf, when you about this topic of the thugs and criminals into our area, we end up associate ourselves with them so that we can feel safe, because you see a lot of people, even the police, being there on that house, and then you just ask yourself, what are they doing? What do they want? Then maybe it's a safety for us, because like tomorrow they might even come and target you. So we just end up like not knowing where to go, just only to associate ourselves with the criminals in the township. There's so many there.
Yeah, just to associate with the criminals. I've heard that before. Here's another. Are criminals heroes? Can they be?
Ashraf, good afternoon, man. Flores from the beautiful Western Cape. Listening to you and the policeman there. Ashraf, it is absolutely the truth. Communities are harboring and protecting these very criminals that are torturing them, because they get protection from them, they get food from them. So it's very difficult to really break this scourge of gangsterism and killings, because we protect them, our brothers, our nephews, our dads, our uncles. Have a good job, bye-bye.
Thank you. But is South Africa's position unique? I mean, what about other countries, similar issues to us, and how have they been able to overcome it, if they have?
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and the listeners of SFM. Ashraf, I have noticed that in war-zone countries at the moment right now, Middle East or Ukraine, I have noticed that every ceasefire means it's time to supply weapons and ammunition. It has nothing to do with the stopping of the war, because the world leaders themselves who are talking against the war, they are the one investing in it.
Okay, there we are. I hear what you're saying. There's lots of business. In fact, there's been huge investment now in Syria, by the way. And you just wonder what comes out of it.
Hi, Ashraf. To Tolani's point, many, many years ago, when I started in the city of Cape Town, we were community leaders in the community centers. And we did exactly that, what he said. Got the children off the street, I was a gymnastic teacher, I was a bodybuilder teacher, I did judo and a whole lot of activities like that. And we had over 100 kids per day. And I think that's part of what he says. Great program.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate the feedback from you. It's a big team that puts it all together. Myself, Keys, Temba, Busani, that's the team. And then we have a rotating producer, of course, every week. I mean, today it's Patrick, but that changes every time. But we make it happen. Appreciate the feedback. Right, Malusi in Polokwane, go for it. Hello.
Afternoon, Ashraf.
Yeah, good talking to you.
Ashraf, the Davidson shooting, I'm not surprised, Ashraf. When you drive on the N12, let's say coming from Wheatbank, you're entering Davidson, you pass the Kingsway Overham. Just after you pass the Kingsway Overham, there is an informal settlement on your way to Joburg on your right? And on your left is the mine dam, the old mine dam. Now, on that informal settlement, yesterday I saw a shocking thing while I'm driving passing that. There is those guys, the illegal, the Zamazamas, with those made up meals where they are cleaning the swell that is getting from those mine dams. And every morning when you pass on that bridge, that crossover, you will see them walking across the bridge. How far is the Gauteng government or the Valumkoti that they've developed to, who are willing or are they ready to clean the country out of? Because if we say some places are no-go areas, like someone says, Davidson is one of the dangerous areas.
Yeah.
Are we really condoning lawlessness, or are they politicians who are benefiting out of the
Well, I
illegal
don't think we're
mining?
condoning lawlessness. I think we're giving up. That's really what it is. There's just this I just can't go into that spaces. Malusi, thank you for that. I mean, that's the essence of it. Like, people just stay away. It's like, we can't fight that battle, which is terrible, actually.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I'm Jagatai in Landi location, Gofimvava. The planting of those metal detectors in those courts in Cape Town, I don't think they are going to help us, because those people are killed because they are witnesses in those courts. So the best thing our government need now to be revisiting this constitution and make sure that the police are given strength so that they can have like a capability of stopping and search whoever that is suspected, because these people are going ambushed on their way home. So I think we need to strengthen our laws. Our police mustn't be just wearing uniform without giving powers. Thanks, Tagata.
Okay, there we are. Yeah, there's a lot to consider. Here's another about the wardens.
Afternoon, Ashraf. Pilani here from Hawakin KZN. I'm really sorry about what happened to those wardens in Gauteng. It just shows that people that are trying to do good things and trying to protect us from criminals, they are vulnerable themselves. Look at, they're just there and they just happen to be shot at. And I wish them a very speedy recovery. And I hope this doesn't happen again. Nobody deserves to be shot and while they're just doing their job.
Well, I mean, here's a question to me and to you, would you be a whistleblower? There's this police officer, I mean, Babita, everybody knows. There's not a police officer, a lawyer just a few days ago, obviously involved in business rescue, who then gets sent a warning to say, step out of this business rescue case or else. And 2 days later, he's gone. And they came to his office, set up a meeting, killed him, finish, and klar. Would you be a whistleblower? What's the case for it? What's the case against it?
May peace be upon you, Ashraf, and everyone.
I think that one, sorry, let me just, I'm not too sure why that did not delete, but I'll do it again. But I appreciate the peace be upon you, and maybe peace be upon you too, right? Yeah.
Afternoon, Ashraf. I think this case of these wardens that were shot in Gauteng must put to bed this very silly notion that the criminals that get killed by the police, or the fact that or the allegations that police are trigger happy, I think this those silly notions must be put to bed, because this highlights just how trigger-happy criminals are in South Africa. They can shoot at you without you doing anything to them, as we've seen now with this case. So I think this silly notion must be put to bed, and police must be allowed to do their job. And when criminals shoot at them, police must use maximum force.
Well, I mean, you know, and I know there's a school of thought to say don't give police free rein because you can't even trust their judgment. But at this point in time, there is a sense that the ones who have the free rein are the criminals, right? I mean, unless proven otherwise, why would you think it's different?
Ashraf, the killing of children by police in KZN, labeling them as criminal, I think is going too far now. Those young children who were killed there in Chatsworth, they need guidance, not to be killed by police. Police needed to use another force, not to kill the black people like that. It's totally unacceptable. In fact, it's disgusting.
But why would you include the word black in that? If you say kill people because they may be criminals or they not, what would it be like you say not to kill black people like that as opposed to don't kill people like that? I'm just trying to understand you and your perspective. There's more to come. So you know with the tariff changes in the USA regarding South Africa, and not just South Africa, others too, what sort of a hit, it's an interesting word I've used, what hit has it had on South Africa's automotive industry, not just the actual cars, but certainly on parts as well? We'll pick up on that conversation around just after about 5:20, so listen out for that. But right now, let's get to the news. It's 5 o'clock.
Thank you, Ashraf. Ramaphosa speaks out over U.S. tariffs and Israel accepts Trump's Gaza ceasefire proposal. Good day to you. President Cyril Ramaphosa says the unilateral tariff actions by the U.S. are contributing to an increasingly protectionist environment, which poses great hardship and danger for the countries of the global south. He was addressing a virtual BRICS leaders summit called by the Brazilian President Lula da Silva to discuss the new tariffs.
We are working with our fellow African countries to consolidate the African Continental Free Trade Area. South Africa remains firm that the multilateral trading system with the WTO and the United Nations at their core must be preserved until all member states are able to reach their developmental goals. Over the past 30 years, the WTO has worked to ensure a level playing field in global trade that is free, predictable, and governed by a rules-based system.
The chairperson of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies, Kusela Diko, has warned that the SABC will collapse if its financial issues related to a funding model and the SABC bill are not resolved soon. She was among the 4 chairpersons of cluster committees in Parliament who briefed the media.
On the SABC is at a risk of collapse. It's burdened by unsustainable debt, outdated infrastructure, and a broken funding model. When we spoke about the SABC, and we said, amongst others, the withdrawing of the SABC bill is sounding a death knell on the institution we were told we were being alarmist. Now, as we stand here today, Centec, which has its main client, the SABC, is bleeding more than 70 million rand per month to subsidize SABC's broadcast signal costs. This is unsustainable, yet the SABC bill, which was essential to ensuring sustainability, remains stalled in this parliament.
The case against alleged arsonist Sithembisa Matlose stands accused of deliberately setting the hijacked Uzindiso building in Johannesburg on fire has been postponed to Wednesday. He faces charges of murder, attempted murder and arson for the 2023 fire in which 76 people were killed. The High Court in Johannesburg, sitting at Palm Ridge, is hearing the case. Mdalose, who lived in the building, previously confessed to starting the fire but later claimed he was coerced into making the confession. Presiding Judge Kasim Musa.
The counsel for the state has informed the court that Mr. Cindi is unwell today and therefore unable to attend the proceedings. You will remember and recall that the matter today is for the defense case where you're supposed to start giving evidence. Sadly so, the matter is unable to proceed as your counsel is unwell. Therefore, by agreement between the parties, your matter then is postponed back to the High Court the 10th day of September 2025.
The Ekurhuleni Metro Police has warned motorists of possible traffic delays due to a pedestrian death on the R24 after the Eden Vale off-ramp east of Johannesburg. Metro Police spokesperson Thabiso Makgato says the right lane is completely closed to traffic and also had a warning for pedestrians.
Pedestrians crossing on the freeway poses as a serious safety concern, potentially leading to fatalities. We appeal to pedestrians to use pedestrian bridges or designated crossings.
Israel says it has accepted US President Donald Trump's proposal for a ceasefire in Gaza. Hamas says it is ready to sit down at the negotiating table. During a visit to Hungary, Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Saar laid out Israel's conditions for a deal.
We are ready to accept a full deal that would end the war based on the cabinet decision. Two things must happen. One, the return of our hostages. We still have 48 hostages kidnapped from their homes on October 7th being held in Gaza today. Second thing, Hamas must lay down its arms.
Top story. President Ramaphosa says the unilateral tariff actions by the US are contributing to an increasingly protectionist environment. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khos.
And it's a very good afternoon to you. In your SFM sports headlines, rugby, the Springbok hooker Malcolm Marx has taken responsibility for the side's line-out struggles in the weekend's defeat to the All Blacks at Eden Park. And South Africa's 400-metre champion Zakita Nene believes he is in the right shape to finally claim his first major international medal at the World Senior Athletics Championships. All the details at around 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
In Fourways has a crash before Winnie Mandela Drive. Eskom Pahleli Drive northbound in Pretoria has delays towards Moot Street, and the M1 northbound in Woodmead is queuing towards Buccleuch interchange. In KZN, the N2 southbound in Isipinga has a crash reported before Joyner Road exit, and the M41 northbound queuing towards Phoenix Highway exit. In Cape Town, Main Road northbound slow moving at St James, Robert Sobukwe Road westbound is where crash is reported at Valhalla Drive, and on the R60 a truck crash south of Worcester. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This year, the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz Festival presents 3 unforgettable days deep in the art and heart of jazz. From the 26th, 27th and 28th of September, Umu Sankare, Ababemu, Jasmia Horn, Silent No and the Noisemakers, Najbonk Trio, Michelle Ndingio-Jello, Willem Siini, Gabby Mutuba, and over 50 world-class acts will be ready to welcome you and yours to 4 magnificent stages of the Sandton Convention Center. Take me there. Buy your tickets at Ticketmaster now.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
You know, I'm looking at this issue, the story of the former Zambian president Edgar Lungu. That's he's passed on, and where he's going to be buried at this point in time just will not go away. Now, the last ruling was that he has to be buried in Zambia, but the advocate Tembeka Mukaitobi has argued that, and I'm quoting, a corpse has no rights. You cannot say a corpse has a right to be buried. He then said that, in fact, who has the right to bury a husband is the wife. She has the right, not actually the corpse. So it's effectively her call. I wonder what you make of that and where that all it's all going to end. Then you've heard the story of the proposed ceasefire between Israel and Palestine or Gaza. Is that going to hold? Well, it's not yet agreed, but do we have something there? Right. We'll talk about some of the other issues to you that's moved the national pulse. And my question to you is would you be a whistleblower? We know the reasons why you would, for all the right reasons. But would you be a whistleblower in South Africa, anywhere in the world? Would you be a whistleblower or would you walk away? And if you walk away, is it because you don't want to, you want to mind your own business? And listen, I don't want to get involved. I don't need this, right? Stress in my life. Or is it because you actually fear for your life? You've seen examples that whistleblowers are not protected, not anywhere near adequately so. So there's a huge understandable fear factor. I wonder where do you stand on this 1 year, and what would you do if you were faced in that position? I really don't even know what I would do, but I'd like to know what you're going to do. Right, you can call in on that issue. You can certainly WhatsApp us live calls as soon as we take them around 5:45, but you can WhatsApp voice note right away. Now, I wonder what you're going to make of this. Listen to this one here. What do you think is the average age of South Africa's airmen and women, military medics, sailors and soldiers that make up the 4 SANDF services? What do you think? What is the average age? What should the average age of these soldiers be? And what is the global norm? Well, here's the story. The current age, the average is sitting at 39, and then those goes up to 49 for the part-time component of General Ruzani Mapanya's total command. Now, according to Darren Willefear, that certainly sets the alarm bells rising. Let's get his thoughts. He's the director of the African Defence Review. Darren, thank you for connecting with us on the National Pulse.
Welcome. Good evening.
Thank you. Let's start with this. South Africa's average age of these members that make up the SANDF is 39. What is the global average?
So what it should be for a force of the SANDF size and capacity should be about 31. Some forces are a bit younger if they, for example, have much conscription and a very small leader base. But given peer examples, 31 is a pretty good comparison.
So we're 8 years above it, and you can almost say we're almost a decade above it, right? And then you've included, as part of the conversation, for the part-time component, that shoots up to 49.
Yes, well, that's partially because the reserves have not been renewed for so many years. Effectively, the SANDF system is broken. If we're talking about what the reserves are meant to be, obviously you would normally expect the reserves to, generally speaking, have a higher age range because they are part-time soldiers. They're people who have sometimes even retired out of the regular force. They can serve a bit longer. So in that sense, that's not too worrying. But again, you want that to be about 35 or so. On the one hand, this is slightly better than before. 2 years ago, it was 41. It's improved slightly as a number of older members have been offered packages to retire. But that also means that that one number doesn't tell you the full story. You have to analyze the entire thing. But this one number itself is still very worrying.
Okay, well, that's the fundamental part. So we'll stay with the 39 for now versus the global average of 31, right? How did we get to that position? And as you say, it's worrying. So let me not assume anything. Why is it a worry?
So effectively what it's telling us, along with the imbalances that the data is showing between different rank levels, is that the SANDF has not been recruiting enough over the past 10 years. Now, we already know this because we know that the MSDS, which is the recruitment intakes, have been getting smaller and smaller and smaller over the years as the budgets have been cut. Originally, the idea was that you'd have approximately 10 to 15,000 of these being recruited every single year. Not all would actually carry on. Some would, exit after 2 years. Some would carry on in the force. But the overall effect was to bring down the force's age. To give you an idea, when this was started in the year 2000, only 10% of the SANDF's private seamen and airmen were between the ages of 18 and 24. By 2011, 10 years later, that had improved to almost 60% of those private seamen and airmen were between the ages of 18 and 24. The moment that intake was cut, those numbers started to once again decline, and the average age once again of those ranks got higher and higher and higher. So what you're seeing now, in effect, with this increasing age, is this real stagnation. It's the force that's being prevented by budget cuts, by constraints, from being able to recruit enough and to have a healthy movement throughout the force. I think something that needs to be deeply understood with regards to Defence Force is that, unlike any other department, you cannot hire, laterally. If you need to have a colonel in 20 years' time, you can't just go to the market and find a colonel. You have to train somebody up all the way from a private, all the way through their career. It takes decades. So once you start cutting your recruitment intakes, you are really setting yourself up for failure within 10 or 20 years, and it'll take another 10 or 20 years to recover from that.
So you touched on budget cuts. Would that be the primary reason that simply South Africa's, treasury just does not have the money to allocate, and therefore there's less hiring, so more people stay in the system that are there, which means they get older? Is that it, or is there more than that?
There's a lot more than that. So funding is the main factor. Looking at the SANDF in the 90s, you had a defense budget that was between 1.8 and 2% of GDP. Then stabilized late 90s at about 1.5%, which, had it been sustained, would have been effective to keep this renewal happening. However, the budget's actually shrunk by now to 0.7% of GDP, which is the lowest I think it's probably been in history. And that simply isn't enough to sustain the force in terms of recruitment, in terms of staffing, and all the other things it needs to do, given its size. However, there was also another factor, which was, I think, a critical error made by Sisulu when she was the minister, in that she increased the wages of MSDS recruits to match those of first-year SANDF contract personnel, and in doing so made MSDS far more expensive than before. Now, this was done as a populist measure. It wasn't funded. At the same time, there were also various salary increases given to the low-level soldiers in the SANDF, again unfunded. This came after the infamous march of soldiers to the union buildings. There was a lot of discontent. There probably was a need to rethink compensation, but the reaction was far too populist, far too poorly thought out. And given that it was never funded, this has also caused a hole in the budget from then onwards. So if you combine that, plus the massively shrinking budget, you have a case where, there's no way any force can be properly run that way.
Okay. What then, I won't say percentage, do you have any sense that there are many people who would prefer to join the SANDF, they're not there because there's no jobs for them, versus they don't want to join the SANDF because they see no future, there's no feel for it, there's no sense of patriotism to say, I need to be there to defend my country. Which one is that part? I mean, or rather, let me put it this way, how substantial is that factor?
Oh no, that is a factor, but I would say that it affects services in different ways. So, for example, the Navy and the Air Force, and the more technical elements of the Army and the Military Health Service, find it really hard to attract well-educated personnel into the SANDF, simply because they generally have better options. They'll get paid more, they'll get a better career, and they look at the dysfunction of the armed forces and don't want to be a part of that. On the other hand, every single year's intake into the SANDF is completely oversubscribed by hundreds of thousands of people applying, even when you only take in 2,000 or even now 10,000. However, from what I understand, they aren't even fully processed. The Army just, for example, takes the first a few thousand that it needs, and then doesn't even process all of the records because it simply lacks capacity because they're all done on paper. So in that sense, it's a multifaceted problem. You have skilled and well-educated people who don't want to join. You have people who are exceptionally desperate and applying in such large numbers that they overwhelm the system. You have the SANDF that has not modernized the system of recruitment for so many years, partially again because they just simply lack the funding to. And of course the SANDF is looked upon in two different ways. One is that it's not seen as a viable prospect for people who have other opportunities, but it's seen as a desperate last attempt for people who can't find jobs. And that's not what you want. You really don't want people to be seeing the SANDF as an employment opportunity as opposed to a calling or a career.
Well, let me leave the last for the most profound. With all of the above that you've just said and painted a very, very desperate scenario, what impact does that have on on South Africa as a country?
Oh, huge. We've already seen how South Africa struggled to really project force in the DRC during this, the SADC mission over there. We're seeing the borders are becoming very difficult to defend because there are simply too few soldiers to put on the borders. Some of that, those numbers were made up using reserves, but even those budgets are now having to decrease. In short, the country is going to become less and less defended and defensible. And the capabilities that the SANDF has, whether that's fighter aircraft, submarines, long-range patrol ships, airlift, helicopters to be able to do transport and all these things, all of those will keep declining and decreasing as those currently in the role leave and can't be replaced.
Well, I'll tell you what, you've given us so much to think about. I would think the only thing we need to do next is speak to the minister of the relevant authority on that to say, like, where do we go next with this? I appreciate your time, Darren Williff here, the African Defence Review Director, saying that the average age of, South Africa's soldiers, 39, it should be 31. And that is what we're facing right now. There you are. You know now. You're on the National Pulse. What are you feeling?
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
When Avukile was diagnosed with blood cancer, his only hope was a stem cell transplant from a matching donor. Thankfully, a perfect match was found, and Avukile received the transplant that saved his life. But thousands of patients in South Africa are still waiting to find their match. Together, we can give more patients like Avukile a second chance at life. Visit dkmsafrica.org.
This is an SABC-supported initiative.
The Morning Brief.
From this conversation about the digital economy, influencers, and content creators against the bigger scheme of what they're trying to raise by way of revenue for the fiscus. Is this really something that's viable, that can be a big source of taxes?
I think it is, because number one is, you must remember, SARS is now like Big Brother. Whatever you do, whatever goes via your bank account, whatever you are doing on social media, etc., SARS is watching you like Big Brother. And because of that extended reach in terms of technology and your social media, so even before you think you know it, SARS knows it already.
Professor Rashid Small, Executive Manager of the African Virtual Institute of Accountancy.
Tulasizwe Simelane on The Morning Brief. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
So you're going to talk to me about our defence force. Imagine if your defence of your football and rugby team is leaky. What do you do? Now, let's talk about another issue. Do you know it's a month now since the tariff of 30% on South African exports to the US kicked in? It's exactly 1 month today, right? Now, obviously there's been a whole debate about what impact it has on our country. Of course, we know other countries are also impacted, but what about the impact on the automotive component manufacturing sector in particular? So let's find out more about it and what has been the plan so far with Tapiwa Samanga, the Chief Executive Officer for Production Technologies Association of South Africa. Appreciate your time, Tapiwa. You're now live on the National Pulse.
Thank you, Ashraf. Good afternoon to you, and also good afternoon to your listeners.
Thank you. Let's maybe start with this. 1 month later, what's the state of your industry?
Of course, there was the initial panic when the tariffs came in. I wouldn't say totally unexpected. We knew what the current USA president had been talking about in his first term. We knew what he was talking about when he was campaigning. What was different was probably the nature of it, and also probably the extent and the severity of how you went about doing it, which took I think everybody else by surprise. But I would say reality is now sinking in, And where we sit in, especially in the tool, die and mold sector, the component manufacturers are our customers, which means whatever hits the component manufacturers in the automotive sector, it actually hits us directly. In South Africa, 50% of our work is in the automotive sector. So there is a reality sinking in. The reality on the ground, Ashraf, to be very honest, is that we, in the short term, short probably to medium term, we'll need to talk to the Americans about probably a tiered approach to how they've done it. Because
but you think when you say we, would we be your sector, or would we be government? Because which one?
That is SA. It's SA Inc. And I think this calls for SA Inc. All of us, and not only in the automotive sector, there are other sectors that are also hard hit, like this citrus sector. So it's actually a question of SA Inc. presenting a proposal to the Americans that actually say 30% just like that is not the way only is not the best way forward. And we're not only talking about South Africa, because let's talk about, let's say, the auto sector. There are several things that come out of South Africa, but which are linked to other countries as well. So you'll find that we might sell cars in South Africa, but the seats are come from Lesotho. The leather seats come from Lesotho. We might sell cars here, and some of the components are actually done in Botswana. So in the end, it's not really about South Africa, but actually a number of African countries talking to the Americans and say, hey, can we have a different conversation about this issue?
Now, I know you say SA Inc. I mean, the Minister of Trade and Industry has been talking to them. Government at presidential level has been having chats with them. I mean, for all intents and purposes, unless things have changed, that door at the moment is not very open at all. So when you say, SA Inc. needs to talk, I mean, who is SA Inc. in this case here? And what happens if the door remains closed?
Let's say business to business, right? Some of our members and companies that we work with in our sector have got direct contact and direct business links in America with companies in America. And those sort of relationships cannot just be dropped just like that. So part of the discussion and what is happening, besides what the government is doing, is also discussions between businesses here and businesses in America. Because we have built capacity. Let's talk, for example, the automotives. We've got companies that are supplying direct into Detroit. We have built capacity in Detroit. That cannot just be closed just like that. Yeah, so besides what government is doing, there is also efforts by business to business, and then the business community in America will then talk to their governments about a better approach.
So are you able to tell me more about maybe some of the work that say you're doing, you as the Production Technologies Association of South Africa?
What we do, Ashraf, is we are in what we call the tool, die and mold sector. Simply put, we make things that make things. And in some cases, we make things that make things that make things. What does that mean? Let's talk automotives. That bonnet of your car, of your dream car, what we do is we carve metal to produce a mirror image of your bonnet, and then we hammer an auto-grade steel plate to produce the shape of your vehicle. That thing that we carve, that mirror image thing that we carve, is what we call a tool. So we are the ones that make the molds that make the cars.
Okay.
So
right, and then what are you doing regarding clearly to try and insulate yourself as an industry against these potential losses and the vulnerability that the industry faces?
There are two issues that can happen. As I said, maybe 3-4 issues or options that we can pursue. As I said, the first one, really now, the house is on fire. You bring in the firemen, which is talk to the Americans about, can we have a different approach to this thing? But going into the medium long term, there are few issues that we need to do. One is actually to increase local content. At the NACAM exhibition show in PE in Quebec about a few weeks ago, it was actually revealed just a 5% increase in the components sector, a 5% increase if there's a 5% increase in components made in South Africa, it will lead to a revenue increase of about 30 billion. That's a lot of opportunities. One. Secondly, we are now seeing on our roads a number of imported vehicles, mainly from the east, which do not have manufacturing capacity in the country. Right. The issue then is, can we have a negotiation with them to actually say, can you increase local content of your brands? And that can be done in South Africa. That will create opportunities. Then also with this situation that we're in, one of the things that we are noticing is that companies in South Africa, which are export-oriented, they are affected, but not to the same level as those which are directly linked. Let's say a company was just supplying into Mercedes-Benz East London and no other customer. So when there's a problem in Mercedes-Benz, it means everything comes down. So we need to increase or expand our exports basket, not just to the USA, but to other places as well. The second thing, and probably final thing, is let's start thinking Africa seriously. Africa is a growing market. Let's engage Africa in terms of the expansion that we are seeing, the growing middle income sector that we are seeing in Africa, which has got a very high consumptive power. That's a market that we can start tapping into in the middle and
you probably need to find new markets. So appreciate your time and thanks for mapping out that scenario. All not too rosy, but certainly gives you some hope in terms of the sense of innovation that may well come out of adversity. So appreciate your time here on the National Pulse. Thanks for that. Right, lots to consider coming out of even that conversation, and I'd like you to just comment on that too if you have an opinion on that. But first things first, let's get the news headlines. It's 5:30.
Quick look at the headlines. The KZN Police Commissioner will be the first witness to testify before the Matlanga Commission of Inquiry when hearings begin next week. President Ramaphosa says the unilateral tariff actions by the US are contributing to an increasingly protectionist environment. And the French Prime Minister is currently addressing Parliament ahead of a vote of confidence, which is likely to lead to the collapse of his government. More on that story and other news at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in KZN, the N1 southbound in Fourways has a crash before Winnie Mandela Drive. The N3 southbound in Edenvale, a stationary truck before Modderfontein Road, and the M1 southbound queuing towards Omonde. In KZN, on the M4 northbound, queuing traffic reported towards the Broadway Durban North exit, the N2 southbound in Amanzimtoti, queuing towards Adams Road, and Chris Hani Road westbound, queuing at the N2 highway. In Cape Town, the R300 southbound, slow-moving approaching Stellenbosch Arterial Road, Baden-Powell Drive eastbound is slow-moving through Strandfontein Road, and on Durban Road in Bellville, a crash reported at Old Oak Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Welcome to it. Let's start with rugby, where the Springbok hooker Malcolm Marx has taken responsibility for the side's line-out struggles in last weekend's 24-17 defeat to the All Blacks at Eden Park. The veteran admitted that missed throws at key moments cost the Boks dearly, saying he must sharpen his accuracy ahead of Saturday's return test in Wellington. Now, Coach Rassie Erasmus has kept the faith with Marx at the starting pack, while the number 8 Jasper Visser returns after suspension to bolster the forwards. The second test will also double up as a contest for the Freedom Cup. In the meantime, the Super Eagles are in Bloemfontein ahead of tomorrow's blockbuster World Cup qualifier against Bafana Bafana. Nigeria trails South Africa by 6 points in Group C and have called the clash a must-win as they chase qualification for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Now, amongst the delegation are former stars Nkwangu Kanu as well as Vincent Ikpeba, who says only victory will satisfy the Super Eagles in the Free State.
Yeah, looking forward to Tuesday. It's always an honor to be in South Africa.
What are the expectations from this game?
We are here to do the job. We have no choice. It's a game to break for the Super Eagles, and It's a big relief that we have maximum point against Rwanda yesterday. So we have to beat the South Africans if we have a chance to qualify for World Cup. So we are here to play to win.
Now let's look at more soccer news. The Tanzania head coach Hamid Suleiman believes that his side remains within a shout of qualifying for the FIFA World Cup as they prepare to do battle against Niger, and that's in their next Group E assignment at the Amani Stadium tomorrow afternoon, 3 p.m. Tanzania will go into the next game on the back of a hard-fought 1-1 draw with Congo-Brazzaville. And as it stands, the Taifa Stars are second in Group E, 8 points behind the spotless Moroccan national team who bagged 6 wins from 6 matches so far. And now we've got the South African 400-meter champion, Zakita Nene, believes he is in the right shape to finally claim his first major international medal when the World Senior Athletics Championships gets underway in Tokyo from Saturday until the 13th of September. Now, although he missed the Brussels and Zurich finals due to a hamstring setback, he's now fully fit.
Hey, so much pressure. But I mean, I'm in a very good position. I just picked up a niggle in Budapest, so I've just been trying to navigate through that. But I wouldn't be here if I wasn't confident that I can step on the track and be competitive. So yeah.
And finally, motorsport, the McLaren team boss, Andrea Stella, said a team orders controversy in his Italian Grand Prix was about putting McLaren's racing values first, as well as fairness. The reigning Formula One champions and runaway leaders asked Oscar Piastri to hand back second place to teammate Lando Norris after the Briton suffered a slow pit stop through no fault of his own. The decision, accepted by both drivers, cut the Australians' overall lead to 31 points from 34. The pair are effectively the only drivers fighting for the title. And that's where we leave it for now. In the fast lane, look out for Michael Abramson. He'll be back on Top Sport. That's tonight between 7 and 8. I'm Zai Khan.
Let me get this right, Ron. You're a plumber by day and Pretoria's smoothest wedding DJ by night.
Yeah, it started out as a passion and now I've got bookings until December. And a smoke machine that needs its own seatbelt.
And you sold your car to buy a van through We Buy Cars.
Brew, it was music to my ears. Zero admin, no long queues. They pulled in, checked it out, and before I knew it, I had cash in the bank.
Now that's a banger. We Buy Cars. Geared for your passion, geared for you.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's get to those facts. Jimmy, you've got a show coming up 6 to 7, but to set the agenda, what is top of the agenda?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. We're going to be taking a look at an interesting court ruling that the Road Accident Fund recently lost in a bid to pause some of their payments. They had previously paused payments as far back as 2023. The most recent pause was looking to extend by another 6 months. It looks as though that's been denied by the courts. And we're going to take a look at the state of the Road Accident Fund. Primarily, the reason they'd wanted to initially pause some of these payments was because they'd cited it was going to create solvency issues for the business. So we're going to take a look at this and see whether or not the Road Accident Fund is indeed solvent or whether or not we have more to be concerned about there. And then we've got a conversation with the team at Sun International, taking a look at their interim results for the first 6 months of the year. We're going to get a sense of how they started off the new financial year and what updates they have for us there. And then we're going to have a conversation around the debt collectors that have been trying to collect on SABC TV licenses. Now, we know the SABC has been trying to recover the monies of TV licenses for the longest time, but it seems as though some of the debt collectors are using less than savory methods to collect debt. So we're going to take a look at that and try and understand some of potentially the legalities around that, some of the rights that customers might have in that respect, and what to do in that situation. Then we're going to have a conversation with the team at Momentum Wealth around the psychological decisions that go into retirement planning. And then we're going to wrap up the show with a personal finance segment. We're going to be taking a look at SARS's latest focus point. They have shifted their focus to now include influencer income. We're going to take a look at that from a personal finance perspective around what people need to know if you are operating in that space, if you have a side hustle in that space, and what SARS is now looking at from their perspective. So that's what's coming up on the show today. But before we get to those conversations, a sense of how the markets have been moving throughout the day. It's been a green start to the week on the equity front. It's been a stronger start for the rand as well. Markets by and large looking in good shape. The gold price has reached new all-time highs. We're now above the $3,600 a fine ounce level. We're at $3,636 a fine ounce at the moment. Brent crude $66 a barrel. Platinum 1,390, back towards that $1,400 a fine ounce level there. Palladium 1,153. Look at the currency side of it. As I said, the rand strengthening against the US dollar. 17 rand 50 against the US dollar. 23 rand 70 against the British pound. 20 rand 56 against the euro. 11.53 against the Australian dollar. And what Bitcoin would set you back about 112,000 US dollars a coin, or around 1.972 million rand. Now it seems softer because that is the result of the stronger rand there, and not necessarily the weaker Bitcoin price. As I said, on the equity side of things, a really good day on the equity front. That stronger gold price moving our resource counters up 3%. The financial stocks were up 1.1%, and industrials up 0.15%. The all share was up 1.2%. The top 40 was up 1.3%. International markets, the only other market that fared as well as ours, slightly better than ours, was the Nikkei in Tokyo. That was up 1.4%. The Hang Seng was up 0.75%, and the CAC 40 in France is up about 0.5%. The DAX in Germany 0.2% to the green. The Nasdaq 0.8% at the moment, and the S&P about 0.4% to the green at the moment. So we're going to look at these and other market movements a little later on. This is obviously going to be that last week before we have the big interest rate week next week. So we'll see what comes out of this week from a market movement perspective, but markets still digesting some of the jobs data that came out on Friday from the US, as well as where we stand at the moment geopolitically. But those conversations are going to come up obviously after the 6 p.m. news. For now, Ashraf, back to you.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for that. Lots to consider. And your show, 6 to 7. Thanks for that, Jimmy. Lots to consider on what we're going to talk about next. So really, you're on the pulse. You've got it all. I need to hear you. Lots of people want to talk about whistleblowers. I know the earlier conversation about teenage rape is another conversation. But what about the conversation leading up to the beginning of the Madlanga Commission and the media briefing they had today? What did you pick out from there? But hey, I could be missing something. You come on, bring it up. Let's talk about it. Put it on the agenda. I'll talk to you next.
X at SFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Would you be a whistleblower? A profound question. Velisani in the Eastern Cape, hello.
How are you?
Yeah, very good. What's your point?
Okay, a first-time caller since you started.
Ah, where we are. Come on, it's about time. Thank you. Welcome to the show.
Yeah. So I wanted to weigh in. I'll try and be brief. I wanted to weigh in on the issue of crime and those young people that have been shot by the police. I think when it comes to criminality, we shouldn't be selective in terms of, especially when it comes to criminality that disregards other people's lives. If someone has the ability and the willingness to take a person's life, I don't think their life should be spared, especially when it comes to confrontation with the police, because it shows that they also don't have respect for the law as well.
Okay, and it's interesting take, because you've obviously heard other people say, but they're young and they're black, and you're suggesting that no, they must be treated
exactly. I think we just need to set aside criminality. We need to isolate criminality. If you're a person that kills people and robs and rapes and does all of those atrocious things, I don't think you deserve any mercy from the public or anything, unless you change your ways before you are even pursued by the law. So I think it's quite telling that we want to say no, they were kids, they were young, and all, but they they have the ability, allegedly, to take people's lives and to cause harm. I mean, and bring terror in communities. So why should they be given and especially if they're confronting police, why should they be given a chance?
Well, I suppose more so in the case of a country at war with itself. Like, how do you treat it, and how do we get to a situation where there's a sense of peace and normality about things? So, Velisani, much appreciate your time. Thank you so much for that. I mean, I know I was speaking to people the other day about people traveling in France, which is not the safest country in the world, but I certainly know many people, women, who would travel and walk around in the streets of Paris at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, knowing they're quite comfortable. And then today, for example, I had some work in Pretoria, and I use the Gautrain, and absolutely top notch. Yes, it does appeal mainly to the middle class. Let's agree on that. But the truth is, for South Africa to grow as a country, you need to grow the middle class. You have to. But also you need to ensure that public transport across the country, from this type of transport to the intercity transport to the Zola Butt taxis that we talk about often, all of them must be safe. When that is safe, honestly, the only guys are going to cry are those who sell motor cars, because we really don't need as many motor cars as we actually have. The fact is we do so because we really have no other choice in the matter. So going today very intentionally, it's not the first time I often use the Gautrain, but how do we get to a situation where we broaden the base of public transport? Number one, besides efficiency, you just got to be safer. You just have to. So thank you for that. Right, would you be a whistleblower? Sello in Mokopane, go for it. Hello.
The answer is no. Ashraf, the answer is no. Whistleblowers are not protected enough, like you said, in this country. You risk your life to expose corruption, and the price that you pay, it is 6 feet under, and then nothing happened, and then everyone enjoyed their lives. So Ashraf, I would totally look the other way around, as if nothing happened. We have a number of examples that we can talk about here. So personally, again, say no.
Okay, you say no, and you've certainly made the point as to why. See, the reality, thank you for that. The reality is crime fighters need to be listening to you and saying, like, why is Sello saying no? How do we get him to say yes? And it means that the terrain has got to change. In Botswana, Mahikeng, you put your town on the map. Go for it. Let's talk about ceasefire. Yeah.
Yes, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Yeah, the ceasefire is quite welcomed, but then they mustn't dictate to tell Hamas to disarm, because that is not going to be. You cannot dictate Hamas to disarm when you are genuine about ceasefire. Because we see on Iraq with Saddam Hussein, he was disarmed. The next thing he was attacked and killed.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want to experience the same in Palestine.
Well, look, I mean, I hear you. I know about this latest ceasefire proposal. I don't know the details. But listen, in any ceasefire negotiation, you can't have a ceasefire, but before you have a ceasefire, or rather, you can't want a ceasefire, but before you have the ceasefire, you already put in your very firm conditions and say, you will only agree to this, that, and the other. Then you don't have a meeting. You can't have a negotiation. So I hear what you're saying, and that can apply across the board too. Thanks for that, Imbawana. Christian Leidenberg, would you be a whistleblower?
I Ashraf, a big fat no, I wouldn't. Interestingly, I was talking to my partner over the weekend about the same issue, that why would you want to be a hero and the next thing you get killed? And if you look at it, there's basically no incentive, because I will give you an example. If you remember, there was one guy who was a witness at the Cindy Somakaka trial, right? He was even appealing to the police minister then, Peggy Kela, to say, protect me, I'm willing to come out and give all the information. But there was dilly-dallying from the state side. So there's absolutely no incentive to be a witness, a whistleblower. And from my perspective, I would say no, because that is actually risking your life, and your family is going to lose you, and who will look after your family? And if you look at it lastly, for example, the SIU came to your show a few months ago, and they clarified to say, for example, if they recover any funds from asset forfeiture or whatever, the funds don't go back to the victims. They are forfeited to the state. So that's even more reasons why should one risk their life and be a whistleblower. And there's absolutely no incentive rather than risking your life. So a big fat no from my side.
Okay, and it's concerning that you say no, but understandable that you say no. So therefore, the criminal justice system and others have got some serious work to try and turn that around. Chris, thanks for sharing your opinions. Right, there's more to come. I'll take WhatsApp comments, and you know that 0614 104 107 to WhatsApp you. And if you are WhatsApping, keep it up to 30 seconds. By the way, did you watch Alcaraz? I watched him. I certainly, what's the word? I kuzad him. If you get my point against Sinner, I really like watching him play. Right. Anyway, any thoughts you have on that one? Then WhatsApp. Then you can call in live 086 000 2032 086 000 2032. Right, I'll get to some of your comments, and there's still a lot on the issue of teenage pregnancy. I'll get to in a moment. Here's one.
Hello, Ashraf. This caller who says the police must not kill black people like that, he's a criminal himself. He's a criminal himself. And one day the police will get him also. Thank you.
How do you say he's a criminal himself? Like, what is the basis of you saying just that?
Ashraf, this thing of police killing, I understand it, but it's amazing me because like they're just killing only the South African thugs. The thugs who come in from Africa, because most of the thugs is we, black people. They're not getting killed. It's just like talking to them, and after that, problem solved. So I'm misunderstanding there.
Okay, interesting take that you have in terms of you don't find foreigners being killed. Really? We actually do need to have a conversation about I think two things, about crime in South African society, like a whole in-depth analysis on the one hand, and understanding the relationship between foreign nationals living in South Africa and South Africans, and the relationship based upon their reasons for being here, the value they add to the country or not. For example, those who are legal, those who are illegal. I mean, I'm talking about a complete state of the nation around that issue. I certainly am up for it.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195, and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Bafana Bafana will host Nigeria in a FIFA 2026 World Cup qualifier at the Toyota Stadium on Tuesday, 9 September at 6 p.m. Tickets are now available nationwide and online from 70 Rand for adults and 40 Rand for children at all Ticket Pro outlets, including Spar, Postnet, and all petrol stations. Get your tickets early to avoid disappointment. Come in Bafana Bafana supporter gear, ready to sing for a win. Gates will open at 3 p.m. If you are not in Bloemfontein, catch the game on SABC2. For more information, visit safa.net and at Bafana Bafana on all social media channels.
The Morning Brief.
Did you leak any information to the Sunday Times?
With the parliamentary questions, as you know, you are also a journalist, you know that parliamentary questions are a public document. The Sunday Times got the public, the parliamentary questions that we answered to Parliament But I can tell you that the Sunday Times did not have everything when they sent the question. It was in the reply that was sent by the department, which I was not also party to. I just sent the things to the Sunday Times because I was told to just leave the things as they are. They handed over the story to the Sunday Times.
That's Lumka Oliphant, the suspended Chief Director of Communications.
Tulasizwe Simelane on The Morning Brief. Find the podcast at safm.co.za. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Question is a question from someone, in fact a comment. No, I won't be a whistleblower. It's a death list to be like, if you're still alive, or leave the country like Andre, the former Eskom CEO. It comes from Brian Mabaye from Protea Glen. Would you be a whistleblower? Sizwe in Nelspruit. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, you're live. Go for it. What's your point?
My point is actually on the Madlanga Commission, man. I just feel like we're being too ignorant as a nation, and that's something that we should really be worried about. Because first off, the allegations made by the general are very, very heavy. And after all of that, there was uproar and outrage. Everybody wanted results, consequences. And now that it's out there and they're trying to actually do something, I feel like we're not rallying behind enough for the man, because now it's commission after commission. And who's to say Madlanga is not even compromised? Looking at how Kachelia is handling things, looking at the state of all the provinces, man. I'm well traveled across South Africa, and I can tell you it is literally the same everywhere. It's murder at every corner, and it's not a racial thing. It happens to everybody looking at the crime, you look at the corruption. In Nelspruit, it's far worse. And, well, I can't drop any names on air, but if people would look into it, then you would see what's happening in Joburg literally is happening in every other city. It's just not documented enough. And now it comes back to the question you begging to ask, which is, would anyone be a whistleblower? I mean, if Nkandla Mkhwanazi is a whistleblower and he brought it live on air, and nobody's supporting him, instead he's being questioned by the SIU, the Public Protector, the Madlanga Commission. Everybody wants answers. They're wanting to testify, they're wanting to do that, but nobody's actually coming out and saying they're supportive of the general, you know. Nobody's actually saying they believe what he's saying. So that's something that really scares and shocks me. And now I just feel like the entire cabinet is compromised to 100%. And I feel like we as a nation, especially us the youth, we gotta do something, Ashraf. We have to do something.
And what is it that you have? I mean, what can you do, seriously?
Honestly, I feel like we're in a digital world. It's a digital space, and I feel like we're too quiet. We're being silent. But we have the energy on Twitter. I mean, on X. We have the energy on all the other platforms. But we use it on weird things. Now people are focused on Sima losing millions of followers. People are focusing on Siam Duji going and doing some what things. But nobody, the youth, none of them. I mean, besides a few, maybe Chris Excel, but most of our influencers, the people with influence, the people with followers, they're not saying nothing. And people like myself, even if I put it out there, it's probably going to be one interaction or impression, you know. It's the boring content the youth doesn't want to listen to. And I blame our government for it, because we no longer have shows like Soul Buddies and Soul CT, Dynamite Mike, T Club, or whatever it was. We used to watch with that guy from Squatter Camp, you know. It's no longer there. It's no longer educational. And no wonder it's no surprise the kids are acting this way. How are kids going to act right if you don't have parks in the hood?
Well, the big question is who influences the
government?
Who influences children? Who influences their thinking? I mean, who's in charge?
I firmly believe it's the government, because they pay these influencers large amounts of money to promote content like Kings of Amapiano, whereby the youth is into it deeply, but none of them are promoting libraries. Name me one influencer who talks about libraries, who talks about political, challenges. Even this guy who's leading the ANC Youth League, he's not saying nothing. He's out there speaking a whole lot of gibberish about the general. But
all right, I hear you. I want to hear what other people have to say as well. Thanks for bringing that up. Please, we certainly put a lot on the agenda, and I would suggest that you think about what he just said. Absolutely. Thank you for that, right? By the way, whatever we do on the show, we put it up as a podcast. So go to safm.co.za. You'll find all today's interviews. But if you go to last week's ones, we had, what did we have? We had John Carney up as the Friday Fireside Chat. Remember that? So listen to that one. Download. It's really fabulous conversation. And then we also had Mandla Mandela talking ahead of the launch, in this case here, of that journey of the humanitarian aid journey of the flotilla to Gaza, right? As well as a representative from the Anglican Church. So that and more that we had. Listen to that. Use that as a basis of being informed, and then a conversation with your friends and family too, right?
In South Africa is that the risk of it really just outweighs the benefits that you get from it. I think for me, any person who wants to sort of whistleblow, the most advisable thing is to maybe move away from that structure or that organization before you whistleblow. I think we've seen too many circumstances where people have whistleblown and really it has not turned out the best for them. They were not protected and hence they've lost their lives. So at this moment in time in South Africa, as much as we want to change the tide against corruption, it is not something that is advisable. And personally, I wouldn't sort of do it. I'll just step away from that structure or organization. Thank you, Ashraf.
Okay, you wouldn't do it. I wonder who will do it convincing. I'm not suggesting you mustn't. Goodness, if there's no whistleblowers in the country, then we have even a bigger crime problem. But the risks are immense. So give me a call where a person comes on and says, I will do it no matter what because of ABC.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, SAFM listeners. Ashraf, Babita tried to save South Africa. Today, her children are without a mother. One of the reggae legends once said, there will be no justice in a country where criminals are making laws. In South Africa, I will not be a whistleblower because you will be a whistle yourself. Until such time we have an administration that can save the whistleblowers. not the government of the ANC. Thank you.
Sure. You think, and your point, the criminals are making the laws. It's a very telling statement. I'm not saying it's true, but it's just how interesting how people think on the show, right? South Africa is a very dangerous. You become a whistleblower and someone connected to the criminals blows the whistle on you and you are in danger. The AG reports are enough as whistleblowers. Ashraf, you keep saying the police are under the resource. No such thing, Ashraf. There's not just enough will and zeal from the leadership. Crime can be so drastically reduced if only they have the will to do so. Well, if they have the will, I mean, do you think that government deliberately wants crime rate to be high? I mean, what would be the motive for that? Ashraf, hi, Salam, you are sick, you are at risk if you are, no, you are at risk if you implement the law, being a whistleblower or not, anonymous. So that could include lawyers too. You are at risk if you implement the law. All right, there's maybe time for me to play maybe two more voice notes before we wrap up the show. Here's one on the president. Yeah, there we are.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and SA listeners. Ndate, on my side, I think the president or whatsoever, the parliament, whatsoever, they must get away or get rid of the South African police service. They must give them those rights. Still remember the police force. They must go back to police force, not police services. Otherwise, this country is going down the drain.
So you mean the accent on the word force and not service? Let's leave it at that. That's the show. Please catch the podcast, share it to your networks. I'd really appreciate that. If you can, tag SFM Radio and myself as well whenever you're commenting, particularly on the Twitter platform or Facebook. But of course, you can find us on Instagram. You can find us on TikTok too. Sometimes on Threads and LinkedIn. I mean, we covered wherever you are. And I personally would love to engage with you when we can, right? By the way, just drop an email to feedback@safm.coza if there's something in particular that you'd like us to cover on the show. So send us that. We'll pick it up. It's time now for the news. It's 6 o'clock.
KZN Police Commissioner to testify at Mhlanga Commission, and Ramaphosa speaks out over US tariffs. Good evening. The KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner, Chancham Kwenazi,